Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Well, welcome. Hello and welcome back. December 18th, 2024. And I just want to give a shout out to my brother who is Marine Corps veteran Walter A. Jones, and today is his birthday. So happy birthday, big brother. My name is Yvette, Army veteran, military relocation professional, and realtor with Real People Realty. I am also the National Veterans Homeless Housing Advocate and Consultant. My show here is all about homeless veterans, their stories, and how we as a community can take care of our nation's heroes. In 21 years, I have housed and administered the housing of homeless veterans here in Chicago and nationwide with housing plans and collaborations. I have been housing homeless veterans for the past 21 years, as I stated. However, in 1993, as a homeless female Army veteran, always running away from an abusive husband who was actively serving in the Marine Corps as a reservist. Mission and my duty to continue serving this population. Today we have Jose Che Gonzales, who is a United States Marine Corps veteran. He served as a technician on the F-18C. After his military service, he pursued a career as a designer, creative director, and manager. Che recently reported his mother, who was going through a divorce, and to fight a long legal battle to regain custody of his daughter. Che recently moved back to Chicago. Those efforts in moving back, Che is determined now to further his education. He plans to attend school at the Art Institute of Chicago to study fashion, visual communication, and architecture. Now, listen to this. During his time in the military, Che served for nearly 4 years and valued his camaraderie and loyalty among his fellow. He is also a certified VSO and was part of the first Veterans Course for Business Management at the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. He used his experience to help other veterans navigate the process of getting their discharges upgraded. He believed that the key to success is willingness as he has demonstrated through his own perseverance. With all of that said, Che Gonzales is currently a homeless on couches and his car in Chicago. With all of that said, Che, welcome to the show. And
Thank
how
you.
did you become homeless?
Well, I came out here, moved back from Puerto Rico, where I was living for the past 4 years since COVID. Obviously, to be with my mother, who just went through a divorce, and also to fight custody for my daughter, who lives here in Chicago, and I've been fighting custody for the last 4 or 5 years. It was a choice I made. Like so many other people, I don't have the money necessary for a down payment. For even though rent is not as bad as it used to be, say 4 or 5 years ago, still, I don't I'm 80% connected with disability, but it still only goes so far. I have my car payment. I still help out my family, whoever I can. I still help my sisters and my mom pay the phone bill. So, but yeah, it's a choice that I'm willing to make until, I get better. Like I said, I have a plan to go to school. I have a plan in set to not be in this situation further, and I think I'm prepared for it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, you helping so much. It's always the one who's seems like who's doing all the help is the one who really needs help. And that's what it sounds like in your situation. Um, and I know that this may sound crazy, but this is a viable question because some veterans do prefer this. But Che, do you want to be homeless?
No, no, and I understand that theory or that mindset. Like I don't think we all want to be homeless. I think we're trying to find a situation for ourselves, maybe get away from a toxic situation. Being in our own environment, I think it helps us, um, towards the future because you got to create that independence. Uh, and like I said, the choice to be homeless isn't mostly a choice. It's more a situational. It's a situation that we have to adapt to, and we gotta step up to the plate and do it. Uh, so in my case, it's more that.
Yeah. So you are fighting for being housed. So let me ask you this. Have you reached is at the VA that I sent you? Because I over when we first met, and I want to tell everybody, Che and I, we just met about what, a week and a half ago,
That 2 weeks ago.
almost. So in that time, and as soon as I get a veteran who is unhoused, who is homeless, who is couch surfing, just period homeless, I get to work and I gather information. So during that time, I think I've sent you, I don't know, 15 or 20 different SSVF organizations and community service organizations. Which ones have you contacted and which ones have said they capabilities to help you in your situation?
Right now, the ones that have availability to help are the VOA, and the
Hmm.
VAC.
So,
Obviously, like I
so
said,
that's volunteers. Wait,
Volunteers of America,
America,
and the
for those who don't know.
Veterans Association
Hmm.
Commission of Cook County.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And what services have they offered?
VOA is offering to help me with two things. It'll be the process of either um, helping me move in with the deposit first month's rent, or helping
Hmm.
me apply for the HUD VASH, and see if I can find a property that way. The VAC is helping me
Uh-huh.
through finances through a Walgreens card, gift cards, Aldi cards, so they can help you with groceries, with hygiene products and stuff like that. So they've been, at least those are the two that've been helping me and been calling me back.
Okay, great. And I know we had some challenges in getting through to some of these agencies, and because of the holiday of America personally, and you were in a limbo stage of them assigning you a case manager. But
Yeah,
during that time you were still couch surfing and living.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I mean, I
All
still
right.
am.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, I only thing I will tell most everyone, whoever's listening, as far as veterans in their homeless situation, uh, if you don't have the will for you to fight, you're always going to be in the same boat. You have to search back to the same thing, the same push, and the same job that helped us get here, because we all have it. We're all military veterans, so you have to get past boot camp. So you got to go back to find that mental state that you use to get past boot camp. You use to to get back to life. And I feel like I said, there's a lot of things that I feel the military could do. One of them being a psychological evaluation to every veteran before they get out. So I feel like the medical industry and the industry in general, just society, will have a better situation of how to manage these veterans if we have a psychological evaluation. before they get out. So we know what angle to take instead of waiting for them to get a divorce, lose a child, get in an accident, create a dependency on alcohol, create a dependency on drugs. So we could avoid a lot of things.
Yeah, and that's what I'm finding too when veterans, it's there's so many resources out here for those different um ailments that a homeless veteran has. A 5-year old um homeless female veteran twice, because when she went to the VA, they gave her a piece of paper with names of realtors. And she called me first, thank God, because the very next day I had her looking at 2 units. But I always say, how you just mentioned, before a veteran is discharged, sit down before they get to me, because now I have to do an evaluation to find out what services you need to make you a whole person again.
Yeah, and I think it'll
And
make
it
us
and
more.
it's
It'll make us more efficient because how much money we're going to save by not having veterans get in an accident, by not having veterans get a divorce. Like there's a lot of things, money that we could be saving society in prevention.
yes.
It's more about the early prevention of these things that already happened. We have statistics, historically, just like the Marine Corps has a statistics that 98%, 95% of first marriages within your first term are going to get a divorce. That's a fact. Like you can't deny numbers.
Hmm.
So, and I think there's enough resources
VA
that are.
has.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of resources that are
Oh yeah.
available. Like in this state, at least 7 out of 10 veterans aren't using their resources. I think marketing a campaign should be done, to get the info. And I think just they don't know it's there.
Right, right. I find that a lot. I house a lot of homeless veterans who are at 10%, who are at 30% for years, and they just don't know where to go, who to trust, upgrade in their benefits, in their service connection benefits. You and I were talking earlier this week about the money that the VA has for homeless veterans. There's $3.2 billion is allocated to. One of those, and I don't have my list in front of me to let you all know what those six are. I'll post them later here in the chat. But one of them, but that homeless prevent that listen, $3.2 billion is a lot of money. And with the
Hmm.
right plans, we should not have any homeless veterans, period. I'm
No.
working with the unhoused homeless. I got let me see, one, two, three calls just today of 3 more unhoused homeless veterans right here in Chicago. Because when veterans go to the VA, when I went to the VA, when I was homeless, running away from a domestic violence marriage, there was nobody. I kept getting sent away. Nobody had the wherewithal to say, hey, let me do an assessment and find the resources to help you in your situation so that you won't have to be on the street. That's all. That it's a conversation that's needed, and research. None of us need to be homeless. That I don't even know how many houses that could build, but it's enough that we don't have to be homeless. What are your thoughts
Yeah,
on
but there's
that,
not,
Chef Gonzalez?
with all when look at all the housing that's available right now around us. Why not create a more expanded voucher system that veterans are more accessible to, and not only veterans, but it'd be more, uh, how can I say, enticing to new, to homeowners, to come,
Hmm.
give them credentials or a tax benefit or a tax break for housing veterans. They have options. They just haven't reached them.
Right. So the city of Chicago, I was in a meeting a couple of weeks ago, allocating an addition. There's already a 20% tax credit, tax break, but they're also allocating an additional 10% to give that incentive for home to want to work with housing veterans. As a realtor, housing homeless veterans, that's unheard of. For 20, it'll be 22 years that I've been housing unhoused homeless veterans. Veterans who are being discharged from the penal system, not discharged but released from jail, veterans who are being discharged from the military, and veterans who just their homes for whatever reason. almost 22 years of housing this population as a licensed realtor. That's unheard of. Realtors want to make money. This is calling. It's a calling because we're not supposed to have unhoused homeless veterans.
No.
You're a prime example of a veteran who has done so much in your life and who's looking at a career as a professional. You should be one of the veterans that the VA organizations, that the SSVF organizations are turning over backwards to help. You're not,
Yeah, because I mean, like I said,
you are an ideal citizen.
and I've been fighting. It took me 13 years to get my discharge changed. So it wasn't something like it was overnight. I've been fighting for the last 14, 15
Yeah,
years. I was discharged a month before my EAS. Like they didn't do me like too nicely either. So, and that was
exactly.
2008. I discharged. So again, I just feel like um, the wrong resources are going to the wrong places. They need to like figure out what's really working and
Yeah,
what. So I think that's a big situation they need to figure out, especially in this country with so much
yeah.
land. Like if you drive an hour outside Chicago, there's just land everywhere. You could use. I don't know why they haven't built
Funny you
communities of
say that.
veterans. They should. That's. You want to
Yeah,
help us make a community of veterans. What better place for us to be at with people that we identify with.
exactly. Because for the past 2 years, going on 2 years, I've been writing veteran village plans. I wrote a veterans village plan for Dalton, for shoot, I forgot, in the south suburb, and another one for Pembroke, Illinois. Like you said, open land, open opportunities for investors, for builders, for the community, for government to come together and help us create that. But it's so much pushback. I don't know, in this line of work, it just seems like we're pushing a rusty wheel up a hill, and no, but we have to, because there should not be unhoused veterans.
I will say that at least I'm staying up here on the north side, off at Oak Park Avenue. The VA did make a veterans
Mhm.
home at Chicago, and it's impressive. It's for handicapped, for
Yes,
special veterans, for older veterans. But if you see the facilities, the place, it looks like the Ritz. You know what I mean? So at least they
mm,
you can't say they haven't done it because they have a proof. They have a proof right there. That's just for special. More veterans that need therapy. That are more disabled. You know what I mean? Like, but why not make that same that cookie cutter idea and put the same design aspect, architecture, and just house regular veterans that are trying to go to school, or veterans that are coming out of the you could group us, and we could create a
yeah,
OBs in order to work with every group. Therapy's got to be in the mix. Family therapy, where you're getting therapy with your family members as well, because they got to figure out how to deal with you as well, because everyone's new to this. We're all new.
exactly, exactly. And you brought up the type of housing. I did a veterans village housing plan for a huge building on the city's west side. It's just sitting there. It's just, and right across the street is a very large, all the residents, all the workers in that building has the parking space and can walk across in a covered shelter. On the first floor would be an indoor mall and all of the wraparound services. The above would be permanent housing up to a certain amount of time, because veterans need to know that there's free education. If you're not 100%, you can always attend the colleges of Chicago, and they have amazing programs that a veteran can go through for 6, 8, or 9 months and come out earning 60, 70, $80,000
Yep. Yep.
now to sell you a house, to sell you a three flat, to become an investor, to house even more veterans. There's so many solutions that we can create and utilize $1 billion more effectively.
I
My
agree.
name is Yvette Jones Swanson, and I am the National Veterans Homeless Housing Advocate and Consultant here in Chicago. But this is my programming show where I talk to current homeless veterans and veterans who were homeless before in life and now doing greater and better things. I am also of the Mental Health Advocacy Consumer Council at Jesse Brown VA and CEO of 100 Pretty Purses for Female Veterans. And we just celebrated our 10th year anniversary. I want to thank you for coming to help us this Saturday. We couldn't have well, my husband. I'm not gonna say me because I wasn't helping with the boxes.
He's taking me forever. You know, his back is gonna love me for the rest of his life. I saved him a couple of little arthritis pills.
Yes, you did. I mean, y'all get. I'm so glad we met, and I think that's how God works too. God puts people in mine, and I was put in yours because this is something we're both very passionate about. And I believe with people like you, with veterans like you, working with, knowledgeable and skilled veterans like myself, we can make and better situations for unhoused homeless veterans.
Yeah, and I mean, not only the homeless, but even the ones that don't have services, even those that aren't service connected. Which in this state I think is a really big problem. 7 out of 10 veterans in this state, my age, under the age of 45, aren't using their benefits, and that's a really big problem. Because anything nowadays helps. Any finance, any little help today helps. I think the ego has to be a lot, has eliminated because, when you struggle, there's no ego. You're not thinking about.
We're all in the same boat now.
Yeah, struggle is. Struggle doesn't discriminate.
I was housing. That's another thing. I conduct veteran homeless and home buying workshops at the vet centers at Harold Washington College, at Jesse Brown CRRC.
That's where we met.
That is where we met. You came to one of my workshops.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, I remember now. Because you have one of my books. I have these books on Amazon that I wrote. Get familiar with using their home buying abilities. Now, those workshops are starting back up in January. This is the book here. So you can go on Amazon and we're about to end this 30-minute show. And I also have another show that we're going to call it After Hours or After the Show, where we can have a greater in-depth conversation and talk even further. But this is a national epidemic. It's a 22 years of housing homeless veterans. And it's a cycle that keeps coming back. It's a business, but it's not good for the veterans who are in this cycle.
No, not at all.
It's hurtful and it's shameful. I was helping veterans navigate to their benefits to becoming service connected and to buy houses, and I wasn't even service connected. I didn't get service connected until 4 years ago, after being discharged from the military in military sexual trauma.
Yeah.
And I knew just how
there's a lot of reasons we help
benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, but that's why even more of a reason why having a home could give you the foundation to work on everything else. But if you don't have an home, how am I supposed to work if I don't have a place to stay?
Right. You don't have an address. You don't get an email. the most depressing thing I had ever gone through, because I didn't have, family. They weren't very loving towards me to open my door. For some reason, people think a battered wife wants. I didn't want to be in that situation. All I needed was somebody to allow me to stay with them until I graduated from college. I was
Yeah.
still a college student when I was a battered wife by the hands of a serving Marine. It was horrific. So then when I did get a job and could leave, I lived in my car in the wintertime. You know how cold it is in Chicago, and I'm thinking Humboldt Park is a beautiful place because it's a park. I didn't know the dangers of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're about to close out. Tuned in, and please follow me on YouTube to hear more conversations with homeless veterans who are looking to do even greater things with their lives, like Jose Che Gonzales will be featured, a homeless female veteran in Hawaii. We're all over the place.
Now we're helping her out too now.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
It doesn't matter. We still have to help each other. We still have to do it. I want to thank you all for watching. Any parting words you'd like to say, Jose?
Just, you guys, anybody need any help with anything as far as like questions or anything, like reach out to Miss Jones. She knows where to reach me. So, and God bless y'all. Happy holidays, and appreciate your roof. Appreciate your home, because you'd be surprised who doesn't have a home on this holiday. So have that in mind.
Yeah. Please do take some socks out and gloves and eat some water. Give it to an unhoused veteran, homeless veteran. Even if you don't think they are, you never know. Just be kind to your fellow man. God bless you all for watching, and have any season. We might have a minute or two. We got to catch up. We still have work to do, Jose. We have a lot of work to do. I did it today, and I just broke down because it's hurtful that we have so many unhoused homeless veterans.
And with so many available apartments.
Yeah. I see one of my former homeless veterans here, 3C Turner. I see Angie Marie Russell. Thank you all for watching us. And yeah, we're gonna keep this train going, because it continues. Our mission continues, and that is to help every homeless veteran that comes in our path. I will fight somebody over a homeless veteran.
Oh, I think we have, most likely.
They're my fisticuffs.
I
yeah.
But yeah.
A Marie. Yeah, that's my girl. Hey, 3C. We're about to be a house. She's ready. This coming spring. She was a homeless veteran with 2 young boys, and now her sons are in college. Wow. One of them already graduated with his engineering. He will be graduating soon. And 3C, we will go shopping for your dream home finally. It's never, ever too late. Che, you came to our house and you said you want to have. My husband and I were both homeless veterans.
Yeah.
And now we're here helping.
I said that was motivation. I needed to see that, because, like I said, people need to see that so they can see it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. It's our time. Peace and love. Thank you all.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618.
I'm Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
America's Heroes Group Roundtable live stream digital media show. December is AIDS Awareness and National Human Rights Month. This show is for Wednesday, December 18th, 2024. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and also let us know your comments in our chat section. I'm U.S. Army National Guard veteran Sean Claiborne, and we have a panelist here today. That's Darius Tahir. He's a KFF Health News correspondent, and he wrote an article, a very interesting article for KFF Health News. But one thing I want to ask people is, who is the admin in charge of Medicare and Medicaid? If you didn't know, currently it's Chiquita Brooks LaShore. I'm sure you never heard that name, but I do know who the next guy is. I know that you know too. And that is the notorious Dr. Oz, Mehmet Oz, that is. And we're going to talk about some of his investments and how that might be a conflict of interest with his new job, heading up Medicare and Medicaid for the United States of America. How you doing, Darius?
Doing good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. So give us an overview of your article. Tell us about some of the meat and potatoes of what you brought up, and then we can kind of do a deep dive into what this means for our nation.
Yeah. Well, a lot of your listeners probably know Dr. Oz, from his time on TV, his, perhaps even his Senate run in 2022 in Pennsylvania, which he lost to John Fetterman. Because of that Senate run, he filed a few different financial disclosures, which kind of got into the ins and outs of his money. Due to his time on TV, he's earned a lot of it, and he's kind of put that money into a lot of stuff that's healthcare related. Now, because he would be leading, if he's confirmed by the Senate, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, that administers Medicare, Medicaid, and a lot of the Affordable Care Act marketplace where people can buy, insurance. That means that he would potentially, if he still continued to hold these investments, have a lot of conflicts of interest, right? So, for example, at the time of 2022, he held, hundreds of thousands of dollars in stock in United Health Group, the large insurer and provider conglomerate. If he were to, be in the position of CMS chair, he'd be dealing with United Health as part of its Medicare Advantage program, right? So they're a large contractor, potentially also its provider groups. He's also got, quite a lot of stock in some other big insurance and providers, such as CVS Health, and Cigna, or he did at the time in 2022. And then he's also got quite a bit of stock in large pharmaceutical companies like Johnson & Johnson. That is relevant because, Medicare and Medicaid negotiate over the price of their drugs. The drugs that they are focusing on include quite a few drugs that, Oz, at least at the time of 2022, held stock in. So you kind of look at it at stuff like this, or for example, his holdings in Amazon, which itself is the owner of the large primary care group, One Medical, or a pharmacy group. So you kind of take this all together, and it's a lot of stuff where Oz would be potentially conflicted in that he would have the ability to enhance the company's fortunes that he's invested in, or perhaps damage competitors as well. And so they're pretty large and wide-ranging conflicts of interest that, by law, he would have to address if he were confirmed as leader of this agency.
And one of the things that come up a lot when people talk about people being appointed in particular positions of power, you mentioned in your article how people, for example, I believe Jenny Yellen, you wrote how she had to sell off a lot of her stock positions because of her appointments were considered conflict of interest. And I do agree. I think it's very important whether you have $600 million invested or $600 invested. It's just as a good rule or good practice, I think it's a good idea to divest yourself of investments, or maybe even hand it over to a blind trust where it's professionally managed by someone else, a third party, where you don't have any real interest or knowledgeable interest as to what your decisions as a policy maker will be in your portfolio. But realistically, what's the rough net worth from what your research is? My research says that Dr. Oz's net worth is somewhere around $200 million versus what allegedly his portfolio holdings are. Do you have an idea or a sense of his net worth versus how much he actually has invested in the healthcare industry?
I don't. I didn't take a look at that. I mean, it's quite a bit of money. He's certainly earned quite a bit from his time as a doctor and a television star, and he's also seemingly invested it quite well in different large stocks. So it's quite a bit of money. Certainly, I don't think I kind of took the time to add it up. But he's got quite a bit. He also had millions of dollars in like a cattle farm, for example. So he's got very wide-ranging influence and stock holdings for sure.
Mm-hmm. So my concern is that, for example, like, so if in your article you wrote you had $600 million invested, somewhere between $550 million to $600 million invested in, or some 600,000, not million, I'm sorry. 550,000, 600,000 invested in United Healthcare. The guy that's worth, $200 million. That's like 0.5%, 0.3% of your net worth, that's invested in one stock position. In the real scheme of things, realistically, I mean, that's not really enough power for United Healthcare is worth $500 billion. Okay. Like $500+ billion right now as we speak. As far as the influence that it might have on his decision-making or, and I have no idea how big his overall portfolio is. People say it's tens of millions of dollars from what I've read. It could be $50 million. It could be $100 million. I'm guessing it's south of $100 million, half of his net worth. Do you really think that those types of things will affect his decision-making, or that the corporations that he holds really even care too much about, how much he has in stock?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't get into his mind. I'm just noting that, he's definitely got quite extensive and quite large holdings. Potentially, a lot of the experts in this sort of thing note, like, look, that large bit of holdings can influence kind of the way you think and the way you act in a official position.
And I agree to an extent. I'm just not quite sure, and I haven't heard any evidence so far that he has enough money in those types of things. Like if he was Warren Buffett and Warren Buffett was made the transportation secretary. Warren Buffett controls railroads. You know what I mean? He has just by one decision he can make can literally, shapeshift what the transportation industry can do. I don't think Dr. Oz has that kind of power, as a doctor, as a brain surgeon. However, though, I do think you raise an interesting point, and a very important point, of the fact that we need to have more oversight when it comes to just basic, simple conflicts of interest, no matter how large or small that it might be. Because you never know. We don't know the mind of Dr. Oz. We don't know if he maybe is as competitive as he seems to be and as ambitious as he seems to be. Maybe, if he loses 5% of his portfolio because of some decisions that could be made, maybe that could be something that pisses him off and affects his decision making or clouds his judgment some kind of way. We don't know because we're not Dr. Oz. However, once again, we have to have better, I think, rules on the books. Are there any rules or regulations regarding having to divest yourself? We know Donald Trump, when he became president, as you mentioned in your article as well, he didn't divest himself of anything. He basically was urged and people asked him and begged him to detangle himself from his obligations that did have very significant ramifications, particularly with his dealings with foreign nations, having real estate and having deals with foreign governments to build real estate and get land that not anybody can just walk in and get, to build resorts and hotels and all kinds of different types of things. His relationships with even cities. For example, there's a Trump Tower literally 10 minutes away from my home. And so that being said, what are the rules about this?
Yeah, so essentially, I think the kind of preference is to divest your assets if possible. I think you also mentioned sometimes, in some instances, you can put it in a blind trust. So there are ways of kind of managing the issues posed by your stock holdings, and I think typically nominees kind of work it out as they're confirmed.
Mm-hmm. So one of the bigger issues I want to talk about too is his love affair with Medicare Advantage, because that's one of the things when we talk about how that might really change the landscape of Medicare and Medicaid. Having the idea of pushing the Medicare more towards privatization. So people don't understand, to give people a little bit of background. So when you sign up for Medicare, you get Part A and Part B. There's a thing called Part C, which is Medicare Advantage, which is becoming very popular over the last maybe 10 years or so. Many people have, the numbers on that thing have skyrocketed. You might be seeing late at night TV infomercials on Humana Medicare Advantage programs of one of the carriers that offer these things. Explain how, what are your concerns about that? In your article, you brought some interesting points up about that as well.
Yeah, so currently about new enrollees, the majority of them go with Medicare Advantage, and it's kind of a controversial program. Some folks who like it, say it's more convenient. It offers benefits, perhaps that conventional Medicare doesn't. And then critics sort of note that effectively the government, pays these insurers to, in themselves insure other folks. And there are, critics say, a lot of cat and mouse games where these insurers will effectively overcharge, perhaps, the government for the people that they have. And so, in essence, it becomes more expensive to insure somebody through Medicare Advantage than through kind of conventional or traditional Medicare.
Yeah, and then also, the idea that Medicare as a whole, Medicare Advantage programs are known for having high denial rates. So one of the things that people can't really kind of gauge when they're signing up for Medicare is what they'll actually need as they get older, right? So when people start getting older and they start signing up or trying to use their benefits, sometimes they find out with these Advantage programs that they don't qualify or they can't get it because either it's been denied by the provider or the provider doesn't cover it.
Certainly I'm not I'm not into the in and outs of Medicare. Just that's the kind of policy debate people have.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that we're talking about United Healthcare. Unfortunately, I also got to think about Brian Thomas, the CEO of United Healthcare, who was killed, seemingly assassinated on the streets of New York. the past few days. My hearts go out to his family and prayers go out to his family. It's also interesting that we're talking about this conversation about Dr. Oz and United Healthcare, and the fact that United Healthcare, and I'm going to see if I can put this graphic up, has one of the highest denial rates of all of the Medicare Advantage programs. Did you see anything like that in your research, or you have any comments about that?
I was really focused, on kind of Dr. Oz's, kind of the picture we can get into his finances and how that might affect, his policy positions as leader of CMS.
So what do you think will happen? You think he will divest himself? What are the indications so far that you've seen?
It's hard. I just know what the law is. Legally he's supposed to do it. I'm not in Dr. Oz's head, so I don't know how he'll approach it. But legally he's supposed to do it.
Mm-hmm. So I think, like I said, I think it's really important that he does that. Let's see if we can see this graphic here. So this chart here shows, if it's coming up, I'm not sure if it's coming up at all. Do you guys see it? I don't know if you can see it. I don't think it's coming up. Anyways, so that's how the chart that shows that United Healthcare denied 32% of their claims were denied, plus flat out denied. This is data from LendingTree. And that was this was in 2023. 32% of their claims, the leading denier of claims, and one of the major players in the Medicare Advantage and also the Medicare industry, not just with Medicare, but even just regular employer-sponsored healthcare plans. So tell me, what was the biggest thing that you learned or thought was most interesting about the article when you were researching for it?
I was really kind of surprised at the extent of his interests in healthcare. It's in the health insurance industry. It's you've got some hospitals in there. You got big tech companies like Amazon, which I think I mentioned before. You have cattle farms. You have Pepsi. It's a wide range of stuff, and potentially could affect his judgment as leader of this agency, given that he's kind of has been historically entangled with all these industries.
Now, from your research, do you believe in his ability to be the admin for the CMS?
That's a question that's not up to me. It's up to kind of the United States Senate. I was just kind of interested and surprised at the level of and breadth of his investments in all these different industries.
Yeah, me personally, when I look at his record of things that he's done since he's been this big media, Emmy award-winning media guy on Fox TV, he's given some weird advice. He told me on television that I should be drinking vodka every day to help clear arteries. Okay, if I did that, I'd be dead right now. He's got the weight loss, pitchman. It's been even offered, to recommend an astrology as with some health benefits. And he has a back and forth indecisiveness of views on various things like vaccines. Those types of things I think are most alarming to me. I'm still not 100% all in on the idea that, that his particular holdings, investment holdings, like I said, with the guy with his net worth, he has no real control over, I don't think, influencing the decisions that United Healthcare might make. However, I think you do raise an interesting point that, I think there needs to be, regardless if you have, like I said, $600 million in United Healthcare or $600 in United Healthcare, stakes are so much lower where people are forced to divest themselves of these types of conflicts of interest, no matter how big or small they might be, just as a matter of fact. You have to do these types of things. For someone to have such an important role with Medicare and Medicaid, to not have to do that, I think is really, really alarming and really, really scary for our country. And in the age now we're seeing to be moving into with the new Trump administration of deregulation, that becomes only more scary to me. Did you see any kind of data or anything that you wanted to comment on his relationship with RFK, who's going to be ahead of the Department of Health and Human Services? Because Medicaid, his department, CMS, falls right under that. So now you have RFK, who was critical of vaccines, and you have a guy like Dr. Oz, who's been back and forth on vaccines, seem to be very congruent on a lot of their ideas about how they want to take the Medicare industry and also healthcare in general going forward.
I'm not aware of their personal relationship. Certainly in the days before Oz's nomination was announced, a lot of his TikToks were kind of echoing some of RFK's rhetoric and sort of suggesting some simpatico ideas. So, I don't know how it'll evolve, assuming both are approved, but certainly right now they seem to have some alignment.
Mm-hmm. So what would you think the most important thing to take away from your article from your perspective is that you want audiences to know?
I mean, I just think the main point is just the level of investment here, right? If you have money in all these different pots, probably that affects the way you think, right? If you have invested in, say a company, it's probably because you think it's a good company, it's a valuable company, and the question is whether that means going forward, you're likely to make policy that perhaps favors that company or hurts its competitors. So that's I think why the folks who put the laws in around conflicts of interest kind of designed it the way they did. But,
yeah, I think I agree. I think, but to an extent, like I said, I think there's different levels to it. I think not every situation. This has come up many times with a lot of politicians in the past, and people even gotten in trouble for it, both Democratic and Republican. Have been slapped on the wrist. Some cases, the people divested themselves willingly. Other times, they just didn't. They flat out said, forget, I'm not doing it. I think there needs to be tougher rules and regulations on those conflicts of interest. For nothing else, for optics, for nothing else, just to keep the playing field level and everything on the up and up. Once again, there is a story there where we talk about United Healthcare, the idea that United Healthcare he has $600,000 invested with United Healthcare, roughly around there from what we've researched and what we kind of understand. He's going to be head of the admin for the CMS, and so handling Medicare and Medicaid. United Healthcare is a major player in that industry, not just any player, but a major player in that industry. Not only that, there is a relationship where Dr. Oz has repeatedly talked about throughout his medical career about having a Medicare Advantage for all, having something where pretty much a product that United Healthcare develops and actually is known for, besides other guys like Humana and so on, where they can step in and actually change the way we look at Medicare and Medicaid and how we interact with Medicare and Medicaid. I think that's a very, very, people are talking about that now, and I think that's a very critical thing to think about for our audience. I really get concerned about that. Even in our industry, as veterans, Humana had even approached the VA and try to offer ideas about ways that they could, that their products and services could help the VA, which lends itself to the idea that maybe perhaps, people who are in favor of privatization of the VA could use some of those ideas in the VA healthcare system. So those are things that, that are on the tips of a lot of veterans' minds and also out there throughout the nation. So I remember I saw you on TikTok. How are you doing with baby manuals nowadays?
Baby manuals. Fortunately, the baby is growing, so we have to rely on manuals less. But let me tell you, they're not well written. That's an opinion I stick to and stand by.
Mm-hmm. What would you say what was the biggest thing you learned being a new father?
It's babies are scientists, and sometimes they work out really cool things like how to use the slide, and other times they work out kind of weird things like the best place to blow your nose on is your parents' shirt. So it's a little 50-50 about whether you're dealing with a wonderful new invention or something kind of weird and gross. So yeah.
Now, how did you get connected with KFF?
It's just a really good healthcare reporting organization. I've always been a healthcare reporter, so basically was just talking with some of the former top editors there, and it was a natural fit. So, yeah, pretty straightforward.
Okay. What are things you're working on coming up? Do you have any new articles that you're going to like talk about a little bit? Some of the research you're doing upcoming?
I'm continuing to kind of track this incoming Trump administration, and also should have some stuff on kind of AI in healthcare. So I'd say those are the two top areas right now, and we're trying to get some stuff out before Christmas. So hoping that works out.
Yeah, it seems like the Trump administration with his appointees, the people that he's recommended, some of them have to get approved, some of them can disappoint, like Dr. Oz. Do you think
Dr. Oz has to get approved?
Okay, let's get approved. So, do you think he's likely to be approved?
That I can't say. I haven't talked.
A lot of these guys seem to be getting shot down left and right. I mean, people have said that people think that Trump is just giving his base what they asked for, pretty much, with the understanding that, well, some of them most of them probably won't make it. But he's going to at least put the effort in to show that, hey, I did what I said I was going to do. I recommended these guys, but your Congress didn't approve them. Do you see that a little bit, or do you what's your if you just your personal level of confidence? How likely do you think Congress is to approve a guy like Dr. Oz for his position?
I am just been continually surprised, going on 8 years now. So it's probably best that I, for sake of my reputation, that I don't speculate anymore about anything that's ever going to happen in the future. So
I'm kind of with you, man. To be honest with you, I mean, like I said, I have no idea what's going to happen with Dr. Oz. He's an interesting case because he's very controversial. When you think about it, he is popular with certain people, but he's also, people that are in positions where they respect government because they worked in government or they've had positions, whether it be in the military, whether it be in the Department of Treasury, Department of Health and Human Services, whatever it might be, they're not excited about this idea at all. They think he's the wrong guy. It's because you're a great doctor or a great brain surgeon doesn't necessarily make you a great administrator. That's kind of the thing that people are saying. One of the critiques about Dr. Oz, things people are saying is that, and I've seen this, and you see this in many professions. You might be a great, businessman, doesn't make you a great executive in a government, right? Or vice versa.
There's certainly a lot of criticism, and I think there are some folks in favor of him as well. So, I couldn't I couldn't begin to add it up.
Right. And I think it's just interesting, to see like what shakes out from all this. That's the thing I think is really important to take away from. Because we're about a month away, a little bit more than a month away from Donald Trump taking office. And we see what actually sticks to all the spaghetti is kind of thrown up to the wall. If we see what sticks, we'll see where we're at, with Medicaid, Medicare, going forward the next year. I can't see it happening quickly. I can't see these changes happening without a lot of pushback as well. People do not like it when you mess with their Medicare. They don't like it when you mess with their Social Security checks. And that population, if we can count on one population to vote, that is the population that will vote. But Donald Trump, he might be looking at it like, hey, this is my last hurrah. I got what I wanted. I'm president again. All his cases are now dismissed. So what else can he lose at this point?
Like I said before, I feel like my prediction record, has not been great over the past 8 years or so. So I think that's probably a lesson to me about what to do in the future for sure.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming on our show, and also want to make sure the audience, make sure you leave your comments with us on our website. It's important for us to hear what you think and also for your voices to be heard. So let us know what you think on our YouTube channel. Also, you can see us on americash.org, and you can email us at americas@info@hg.org. Thanks a lot for your time, Tahir.
Thank you.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
And an advocate for caregivers. And we're going to continue our conversation about aging in place.
Connects,
Are you equipped? How you doing, Keisha?
I'm doing well, Sean. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. So what do you want to tell us more about aging in place? We talked a lot about it last time you were on the show. And also we have some new information we want to share with the audience as things that they can do to make sure that they're prepared.
Yeah, well, 2 months ago, I talked about asking the hard questions to our loved ones. And then last month, you're right, we talked about the solo aging part. And this month, where I'm tying it in with aging in place. And they're all relatively tied together. The difference between more of the solo aging is building a community for yourself, making sure that there's others that has maybe your potential information to be able to help you out, whether you're letting a neighbor know, or maybe you have a spouse that is not able to help you, or you may have a child with special needs that cannot help you. It's just making sure you're prepared and you're not alone. Now, with aging in place, it's more of that, but it's also adding, you're living in your apartment, you're living in your townhouse, you're living in your single family home. Are you equipped to be able to continually grow and age in that particular place? There was a study that was done probably about a decade ago. And the poll was asking people, how many people want to live to be able to age in their own home? It was 90% of people said that they wanted to age in their own home, meaning that they didn't want to go to any type of nursing home or rehabilitation or assisted living. But the challenge with that, of the 90 people that said they want to age in their own home, about 90% of our homes are not prepared for us to age in place.
Is this because the homes are too big, they have stairs, too many dangerous things, because people are familiar with what they've grown up with, or grown old with, I should say, so they're not really thinking about what they should change?
It could be because the home is too big, but you could take advantage of the home being too big. It may be that because of the size of it, it may allow you to bring in a stair lift, or if you have the funds, maybe somebody can have an elevator put in their home, or it allows you, if you have a mobility device like a wheelchair, to be able to maneuver a little bit better if you have a larger home. So that could be it. If you're in a smaller home, it could be that maybe it's too small for you to successfully age in place, but you may not have the money to be able to move somewhere. So what do you do when you're in a smaller place or an apartment or something like that? So those are the things that I really wanted to talk about in terms of what can we do to help us to be able to age in place.
Remind me of a story. I'm not sure if I saw this on a movie or saw this on a news article, but there was an elderly couple, an elderly woman who her husband had passed away, and she took in veterans because she had such a huge home. She took in veterans into her home, and then basically what they were doing, the veterans all had different things that they specialized in. Like one person was the cook, one person was like the medic, one person was like the runabout person to go run errands, things like that. But they all lived in this home as seniors, taking care of each other.
Yeah, it's helpful to have that network. And that's one of the challenges for, as you age, your network becomes smaller. You know, I may have mentioned it on the show multiple times that my mom was one of 13. So my grandmother had these 13 children, and all my grandmother really catered to was her family. And unfortunately for my grandmother, her children started passing before her. My grandmother passed at the age of 102.
Wow.
And so she didn't have friends for the most part. I mean, there were a few church friends that she used to have. My grandfather was the pastor of the church when they were younger. But when she got older, she had her children, she had her sons, her daughters, she had her grandchildren, she had her great-grand, she had her great-great-grand. So she didn't have a network outside really of her of her family. And sometimes when you have that, especially I would say your children, those that grow up around you, you could be 85, 90, 95, and they sometimes have a tendency not to see you as older. They just still see you as mama or daddy. And so where you're slowing down and things that you can't do, people don't realize that that's a part of your aging.
So what are some of the things that people can do to make their homes more prepared? I know I helped a lady one time. She was a senior that was in a neighborhood that had changed demographically, unfortunately for the worse. So she wanted to get out. She called me up one day panicking, saying, somebody tried to break into my house today. I'm out of here. You got to get me out of this place. So she found a nursing home or assisted living facility. It wasn't really a nursing home, that's the wrong word. An assisted living facility where she had the money to afford it. People were around her to take care of her. But one of the things that they helped her with the transition was making sure that everything was on one level. She had no stairs to climb up and down, and everything was spaced out in her home, because they meticulously looked at the furniture, making sure the furniture was in the right places so she wasn't tripping and bumping into stuff as she was moving around. What are some of the things that you can recommend that people think about when they prepare their homes as they get older?
Well, definitely that falls right in line. One of the things is to just start, if you want to start from outside, a lot of times when you get older, your hands are not capable of grabbing knobs and different things like you used to, whether it's arthritis or different things that you could be having challenges with your hand. One of the things is recommended to get something with a lever. Now that could be for the outside door or the inside door. Maybe even outside your front door, putting like not a desk, something to sit stuff on.
Okay.
Well, if you're managing, trying to carry a package in the house, that you can sit it down so you could take your time to be able to open the front door. You want to make sure that you have a wide enough doorway so that you can freely get access in and out of your home in case you do have mobility issues where you need a scooter or a wheelchair. Another thing that you could look for outside of your home is putting a ramp in there. And I'll just switch and say people in the VA, us that are military veterans, the VA can do an assessment for that as well, to be able to potentially come in and help you put a ramp in, or maybe you have become an amputee and different things like that. You also want to make sure for your outside that it is extremely well lit at all times. You want to make sure that if you are, whether you're solo or whether there's someone else, that if you're going out of town, you're going on vacation, that you don't allow mail to pile up if you're getting mail directly at your house, because that can be an opportunity for someone to come in and notice that and rob you because they see that mail is piling up. And as we transition in the house, let's just say you're doing a home improvement, and this is still outside, but it's inside. Let's just say you're doing a home improvement to be able to help you take out the shower, the tub, and put in the shower, because we know bathroom is one of the number one places that we have falls. Say, for instance, you have someone coming in, a company that's remodeling, and they put that stake outside. This is, Sean Claiborne's home remodeling, whatever, that stake, and they put it out there. You have to be really careful about even things like that being outside your house for safety reasons. It's okay to have it, but it had been reported that a lady was having some work done in her house. Someone saw that sign outside. They came to her after hours and said that they were a part of this Sean Claiborne home improvement company, and they had left something in, and they forced themselves in there, and they hurt the lady very bad. Wow. And if her husband, she was calling out to her husband, and if her husband had not have helped her out, it probably would have been a little bit more, even worse than that.
So being aware of who's coming in and out of your home, maybe getting security cameras if you're haven't done that already, and then talking to the people who are in their 50s and 60s and older, who still haven't really got to the point where they might need or think about caregiving, but need to think about caregiving, make preparations, maybe figuring out a way to put cameras in your house, the different systems that they have out there, so you can watch and see what's going on inside and outside your home. If you're having people do work on your home, find out who's in the crew, how many guys are here. Call if somebody's there after hours that seems suspicious. Have the contractor's number on hand so you can call the contractor up and say, hey, why is this person here, or who's this person? Yeah. I think that's really, really good tips. And then also one of the things I think is really important to think about is the cost, because like we have VA support, but some people don't have VA support. Well, I don't have VA support because I don't have the medical ratings and all that stuff like that you need, and all that stuff in my time of service. But a lot of people don't have the monetary means to do these types of things. So what are some ways that people can use to try to either do it themselves, or are there any types of financial aid or assistance out there for people to get this stuff, to get their home modified for aging?
I always recommend, and I'll continually say this forever when I'm talking to people, I would always recommend checking with your local, your counties, your HOAs, go to your library, just different things, find out local things that are happening in your area to see if you can get, maybe there's some grants, there's some assistance that will be able to help you. But the local area agency on agency, they're so well connected with so many different organizations and programs and plans in the community to be able to provide and help you with those things. A Ring doorbell or some of the other monitoring doorbells are phenomenal to be able to have. I've shared with people, if you don't have that, if you can't afford to purchase one, if you have a baby monitor, there's different things that you can get that may not necessarily be for outside, but they're also helpful for you inside. And then some of it is just really assessing, what do you value, right? It may be a little bit expensive to get it, but is it worth it in the end? Is it better to have a monitoring system and maybe cut back and not eating a particular thing? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Or if it's something that you like, you have to weigh the pros and cons to determine, is this something that I need? Is there something that I want? Is it something that's going to be helpful? Is it something that's going to be beneficial to me?
Mm-hmm. I think it's also a good idea to not be ashamed or be afraid and not consider yourself too young or too old to ask for help. You know, people like what you're doing in your organizations you work with, reaching out to the professionals that are out there that can actually help you, financial advisors, agents, things like that, people that at the Department of Aging and things along those lines in your community that can give you advice, oftentimes with no cost. So you can go to these people and get information as to get advice as to what you can do and how you can pay for this stuff. Yeah. Now, one topic, I don't know if you've done any research on this, but I wanted to bring out, so I think it's important because this topic comes up a lot, and that's reverse mortgages. Reverse mortgages are a thing that people oftentimes are things that are sold to seniors. There's good, of course, and bad to these things. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on those as far as a way to finance or pay for a lot of the stuff that aging seniors might need?
Well, I don't have a background in it. For seniors, I always recommend as well to find a good elder care attorney, to find someone to be able to talk to be able to ask those questions, because what may be good, like you said, for someone may be a horrible decision for someone else. And then there's so many people that will try to scam you. Mm-hmm. And so your intention could be really well, but then it could turn out to be horrible. And if you don't do it right, then you could wind up losing your home. It could be turned over to someone else. And then what do? You out there, you're stuck. Now, in terms of some of the things that you can do, I was mentioning maybe a baby monitor or different things like that. These are very, very practical, more affordable things. I'll say like this. Sometimes people do not like to use paper plates. I've had people that you cannot fix a plate for them, and it has to be a regular plate.
Yes, I'm one of those guys.
But this is the thing for me. Mm-hmm. A plate could be a handicap for you. You could go to reach, grab a plate. It could fall, it could drop, it could shatter. If you have a paper plate and you drop a paper plate and food spills, you pretty much didn't hurt anything but the floor and time to clean it up. So that's something really small to take in consideration that you may want to do to help you out. And it may be a transition. Okay, say, Sean, we'll use this as this example. You don't like to use paper plates. How about starting January the 1st, 2025, should the Lord allow us to live to see that, then maybe once a week you say, you know what, I'm going to use a paper plate. And then
work more push-ups and see how that turns out.
So I'm just saying it's those different things. Mm-hmm. Maybe in your home, you have a lot of heavy, bulky furniture. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's time to start getting rid of some of those things while you have somebody that can help you. Now, even me, myself, I had a lot of artwork that I had in my house when I first start getting my house, all this glass, nice frame. What I've actually started doing is taking all of those down and replacing those with canvas. So now I've gone to something that may have been like 5 to 7 pounds. Honestly, when you pick up this big picture with this glass, that if it falls and shatter, I can get hurt, to a canvas that's like 2 pounds. I mean, not even 2 pounds. And so it's little things like that. Start decluttering, getting rid of stuff. And if you don't do it for no other reason, most of the stuff that we say we're going to get into, we never get back into those clothes, or for our own style or preference, it's probably something that we will never wear again anyway. Let's get rid of those things. Let's make it accessible to walk around and have space all around our bed or in our kitchen where we don't have so many gadgets just shoved in a drawer that we're not using. So those are some very practical things that we could do to help us out as we age.
I think you're right. I mean, furniture and things you have in your basement, as we get older, we tend to just collect things. We collect all this stuff, as George Carlin said once in the comedy bit. We just collect a lot of stuff, but we don't actually know what to do with it. And we haven't even used it in many years. And we always say, well, I might need that one day. But reality is, you know, you're never going to use that thing, that little weird thing sitting in your basement or your drawer that you don't even know what it is. But you think you might need it for some reason because it might just suddenly disappear what it's for or what it is. Get rid of it, throw it in the trash, declutter, and start the process. Because I think the longer you wait, and I've seen this with my family and people that I've worked with, the longer you seem to wait, the harder it is to get rid of it.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even know what you have. I remember going from assignment to assignment in the military. I got so many plaques, awards, you know, whatever of the year, all of these different things, and they wind up getting stored in the garage. Every time I go, and then I move to another place, and then they get stored in the garage. And it's like, oh, I'm going to make my office, all of this. And you never do it. But now that I'm a lot older, and I think about me, and I tell my family, it's not morbid. When I think about dying, nobody in my family is going to understand what that plaque was for. And so me holding on to it, I feel bad to hold on to things that, should I pass, that somebody in my family is just now going to have to get rid of. And so I inserted myself, and not just the military things, because there are certain things that have very strong value to me in the military, but there's other things that I've had stored, book boxes or whatever. There's a lot of things that I've gotten rid of. One of my relatives recently bought a house, and I was telling the person they have all of this stuff in storage. And so they said, well, I just want to move, but I'm going to keep the stuff in storage. And I was saying, by the time you pay monthly for that storage, do you realize if you got rid of it, the thing that you're holding on to, you could buy it brand new. It might have been like a bed frame. And so, but we don't think about those things, and we don't think about, well, I have this king size mattress or this king size frame. As you get older, maybe you don't need that king size because you're downsizing or whatever. Maybe you only need a queen, or maybe only a full. So get rid of it.
I think we don't realize that there's folks out there. I have a lady in my back pocket. Her name is Kat. And I shout out to Kat if she sees this. But she is a person that when I run into seniors that have situations that you're talking about, she is a person that for a fee will go into your home and she will inventory everything in your home. And she does a lot of estate sales when people pass away. But even before a person passes away, a lot of people that do estate sales and do consignment jobs, they'll come in and they'll inventory the things in your home and sell it for you.
Yes.
Sometimes they'll even give you a check up front. They'll give you a check up front, take all your stuff away, haul it all away. And if they get more money for what they sell, they'll send you a second check. Or they'll just have somebody come by your house and just buy all of it outright for a set price that you determine or you accept.
And that's a challenge for a lot of people, because we see that stuff and we don't want to get rid of it. And there are a lot of people that are they hoard. They don't need it, and family members have had to go in, whether it was when their parent was alive, or of course when they were alive, or even after the person has passed, and you go in there and you find all of this stuff boxed on top of boxes. I have a family member that goes in to help a family member to declutter, and there are countless of Amazon order boxes of things that are never open, to the fact where now she gives my relative these things for gifts to help her clean out, but she's still buying more. And so we have to be so careful with all of these different things. The whole purpose of being able to age in place is to be able to downsize in some particular areas, to be able to declutter, to be able to allow, if someone needs to come into your house, to be able to move about freely. I want to make sure that I say this, because I think this is so important. A lot of times when we're thinking about whether it's solo aging in place, we based it off of an age. I don't think we should base solo aging or aging in place off of age as more as we should base it off of your health.
Right.
And the reason why I say that is because let's just say you were deployed or something, and now you're an amputee. So you need assistance. Or I have one of my brothers, his hand, I forgot what you call it, but he cannot open his hand for the most part, and he just turned 60. And so if you're saying, okay, 65 is the age, but that may not necessarily be it. You may be 30, you may be 35, you may be 40. So if you get out of the mindset of saying, I'm old, because we fear the thought of becoming old. Like I've said before, when we get that letter from AARP at 50, we just kind of spaz out with that. And if we stop thinking about age or our family age, if we think about health, I think it would help us to help ourselves to put things in place for us to be able to age in place better.
Right. Ability over age, I think, is really critical to kind of hammer that point home. And then once again, getting ahead of it instead of waiting, because we tend to procrastinate. And then as long as we procrastinate, from the experiences that I've had, and I've lost lots of friends, in situations, a lot of older friends that I passed on. One common thing that I saw, procrastination was one of the things. Not being able to recognize when you start to lose your faculties. This because it's happened sometimes slowly and gradually to the point you don't realize what you've lost in your abilities.
Yeah, there's even there's some organizations that have partnered together with the CDC, and they came up with this falls-free checklist. And again, it's not based off of some of the questions that is a questionnaire they have. Have you fallen within the last 12 months, or have you been advised to use like a cane or a walker, or do you need do you feel unsteady when you're walking, or do you need assistance to be able to just stand? Like, do you have to push up to be able to stand? Those are not based off of I'm 65-year-old. Let me ask that question. You may be 45 and need to ask those questions.
Right.
Do you have medication? Are you taking medication that makes you drowsy? You don't have to be 95 years old or a person with dementia to be able to ask that question. But if we get out of the number and let's just be real about this, about ourselves, about our health, about our family, it's easier to say, you know what, I need to consider doing some things to age in place. And I want to go back to something else that's very practical. A lot of times you want to make sure within the house things are well lit, and they'll tell you to come in and maybe have an electrician to come in, but you may not be able to afford an electrician. I would recommend that you get more LED bulbs, because the probability of replacing them more than the other light bulb that's going to go out is less, right? You usually don't have to replace them more often. You won't have to stand on a ladder, but you may be able to go to like the dollar store or like your Home Depot or something like that and get the little LEDs that light up when you walk, which saves you money from having to pay for an electrician to be able to come in and do things for you. I may have mentioned it on the last podcast, I'm not sure. If you can afford it, I highly recommend getting a bidet. It seems like that's not something that we talk about in the United States, although it's becoming more popular, but having a bidet can be such a helpful for a family member, for the caregiver, and for the person that's being cared for as well.
Really? How is that? How so? Tell me more.
If you think of, well, first of all, older people, or again, I'll say it like that because we're talking about aging from a perspective, are a lot colder. So depending on the seat, it's going to be warm right away. So that right there is very, very helpful. When you have this bidet, it will, depending on the one that you have, it's more sanitary because it's going to kind of start cleaning the bowl even before the person sits, right? It's going to make sure if a person is using the bathroom, you can put the water on to help clean them, to clean their bottom, right? To help clean their front, to dry their front, to dry their bottom. And so that's helping you as the caregiver, and it's helping the individual, maybe helping them get less UTIs, right? And just to be more sanitary in their thing, especially if you're caring for, you talked about your mom and your brother is staying with your mom. Say like, as your mom gets older, let's just say there's something and she does not want either one of her sons in the bathroom with her when she's using the bathroom. But this is a way for her to keep maintain her dignity, if I can say it like that, and to be able to help clean herself. Because we know even when people are older and they're, whether in assisted living, at home, the possibility of maybe getting bed sores or going to the bathroom on themselves is can be a little bit more prevalent, but having this bidet can actually help in some of those areas as well.
Yeah, my mom, she's definitely not shy. She would pick up the cell phone and call you to come out and help.
Well, that's really good. Yeah.
She don't no shame to her.
That's really good. That's a compliment to your mom.
Right. We've always been that type of family where we don't, there's nothing taboo and nothing that we don't just talk about. We get real. We always talk real stuff and real topics. And that's one of the things that I think is important for families, to be honest with one another and say, hey, mom, you need a power of attorney. You got to have a power of attorney for medical and one for property. That's super important.
Yeah.
Mom, you got to get rid of the car. You can't drive no more. I mean,
well, that's good.
Home from the grocery store. We got to get rid of this car.
That is so good and so rare, but that's not the norm for a lot. But there's two things I wanted to mention for aging in place. There's something called a NORC. I don't know if you ever heard it. It's really the naturally occurring retirement community. Those are these communities where they're naturally older people are in those communities. Some say it's based off of 40% of the community is 65 and older. Some say 50 and 65% of the community, different things, but it's a community that has naturally become older based off of the people that live in that community. They kind of unite and help each other out. A NORC is something to look into. The other thing is called Village to Village Network. Now, the Village to Village Network is literally a network, and these are all around the United States, and there may be some overseas, where there's literally people that are staffed to help people to age. You may have volunteers that could come into your home to be able to help you with your medications or to come cut your grass and different things like that. So I highly recommend people to do a Google search on Village to Village Network to see if there's one in your area, or to see if you want to start one in your area to help those that are aging and help them to be able to age in place.
And then, Keisha, I would also ask you if you have contacts in those for those organizations, see if they can come on our show, because people will love to hear what they do and what they provide. And I live in Chicago, but my mother lives in Maryland with my brother. There was an agency in Anne Arundel County where they were it was two agencies. One was private, one was funded by Anne Arundel County, where they had people come into homes and either to provide free respite care, where someone can sit down with a senior and just to talk or clean up or do whatever. And there was one interesting group that I can't remember the name of, because I have to go back and research that number, but you brought that to my attention, or back to my memory. It was an organization that started decades ago. A lady needed help with someone in her family. She couldn't find any help. So she created a network of this regular everyday people. And what you do is you sign up to volunteer, and then you go and help somebody with whatever they need. You list your skills. Maybe all you can do is drive. Maybe you can cook. Maybe you can paint. Maybe you can just sit with somebody and just talk for a couple of hours. They call and they have that person come into your home and they do whatever you need help with, putting up, hanging a picture, changing a light bulb, sweeping the garage out, cooking something, or just talking for a few hours. But then either if you are able to, whatever you're able to do, you can then volunteer yourself to pay it back.
Yes.
So instead of paying money, you use kind of an equal opportunity volunteering system. So for my mother, I volunteered to provide, driving, fixing something contractor wise, whatever it might be. I thought it was a very cool and novel idea to me of how communities can come together. They started with like 10 people, and now there's like thousands of people that have volunteered for this group, where you can call them any time of the day and somebody is able to come out and make an appointment with you to come out and do whatever you want to do health wise, or even if it's something just as simple as, hanging a picture.
Yeah, and that sounds very much like the Village to Village Network. So hopefully, Sean, the things that we've covered can help some people to look at some different things and remember that aging, I believe, is more on your health than on your age. And we'll keep working and see if we can get some people to put some things in place for ourselves and for others, especially our loved ones.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618.
I'm Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
America's Heroes Group, our Roundtable live stream digital media show. December is AIDS Awareness and National Human Rights Month. This is Wednesday, December 18th, 2024, and we want you to like and subscribe as much as you possibly can. You can like and subscribe as many times as you want. Come and see our shows on americashg.org and also see our shows on our YouTube channel and our Facebook channel. Make sure you help us help you by getting you the information that you need and you want to hear about. We have with us today, once again, the great Gigi Crowder, Executive Director of NAMI Contra Costa in California. NAMI is a National Alliance of Mental Health Illness and Advocacy Group founded by family members of people with mental illness. And she brought us a guest today. That is Yvette Williams, the CEO of Back on Track Incorporated. And we're going to talk about the mission, programs, and services of Back on Track Expungement Services. How are you doing today?
Well, I am great, and I'm excited that we have Yvette with us today because so many individuals who live with mental illness often have contact with law enforcement on their path to wellness, and it's especially true for the veterans that we work with. So having a collaborative relationship with Back on Track has benefited NAMIs across the nation. When you can recognize that you can't just wait for the public defender's office to put on their once a year clean slate programs. You need people who are looking for work. And so having this relationship with Yvette Williams has been really beneficial for us.
Yes.
And Yvette, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Tell us about Back on Track. So tell us about the expungement process first and how Back on Track kind of got involved and situated to help with that process.
Well, I fell in love with law in 1988. Originally, I wanted to become a forensic psychiatrist and interview serial killers. And then I realized I'm not good at math, so I can't prescribe medicine. So I stayed in law, and I was actually working for a criminal defense attorney in 1998. My then fiance, he was looking for work, and he forgot, because people do, believe it or not, they forget about an arrest that did not lead so much to a conviction. So he was being denied employment, and I'm sorry, I don't know what happened there. Anyway, so yeah, he was being denied employment. So I went to the lawyer I worked for, and I told him what the issue was. And he was like, well, you need to expunge his record. And I'm like, okay, how do I do that? So he gave me the day off with pay. And I walked to the library in downtown Oakland. And I did the research. I made copies of the paperwork, took it back to him. Then I took it back home and got the information that my fiance at the time had, submitted it to the court,
Now, before we get into it, I have to ask you this question. Do you feel that in the Black community and in veteran communities and different marginalized communities that a lot of these charges were unnecessary or trumped up or exaggerated to an unfair extent?
That's a great question. Absolutely. Yes. I get to see the real truth of justice not being blind. I get to see very bad deals. I get to see all of it. And by the time, Sean, someone comes to me, they are very honest and truthful about their participation and the process it took them to get into trouble and the process it took them to get out. And I'm happy to be a part of that process.
So then if you've seen success or seen movement, I know you helped your boyfriend out, but did you see movement and things like that?
Yes. The first year that I actually started doing, that was in 1998 when I expunged my husband's record. So in 2008, so from 1998 to 2008, I just did it for friends who knew I knew how to do it. So in 2008, I actually started Back on Track expungement services. And the first year, all I did was market the business, meaning I would just go out and do presentations and shake hands and find my clients. That's all I did. I was not concerned about making money. I have had a lot of success with men that wanted to become police officers, persons graduating law school, persons that went to medical school. There are certain charges that just stop you dead in your tracks. You can't get a license to work. I'm sorry, a contractor's license. Your degree may be worth nothing, depending on the charge. So the narrative pushing people to go to school and they have a felony or a misdemeanor, that becomes an issue. So a lot of times I will go to schools and do presentations and work with students while they're in training or looking to get their degree. So by the time they finish, the timing is right and they're able to pursue their dreams.
I'm not sure if this is a question for Gigi or you, Yvette. So either one of you can kind of chime in. Ask Gigi first. When you, in your profession and working with people with mental illness, we know that a lot of times when police interact with people with mental illness, it does not end well or does not go well. The person either ends up in handcuffs and God forbid they end up dead sometimes. And do you see that as, do you see a lot of people with mental illness needing expungements?
Definitely so. You would think I'd spend a lot of time as the CEO of a mental health program working in treatment facilities. I spend more time in courtrooms.
Wow.
And visiting individuals who are incarcerated. We criminalize mental illness. So when a person, especially a person from a BIPOC community, and more specifically African American, they don't get the pass when they've done something while untreated for their mental illness. They are often charged. Some people are well aware of the fact that the jail, the Twin Towers in Los Angeles, California, is the largest mental health institution there is in the nation. So these are people who've committed a crime, but so many of them live with mental illness that they do more services around the mental health than the so-called rehabbing these individuals. So we're actually even on Monday going to go and support a young man who had childhood trauma. He had a strike, but he said, this is the first time ever in my life that I want to complete something. He started barber school after a judge told him, hey, we know you have these struggles that you've had. You have a diagnosis of ADHD. You've made some mistakes in your life. The last judge told him, we don't want to see you again. Go out and do something worthwhile. He chose barber school. He had a minor infraction. Someone came into a house he was living in and they found a small amount of drugs. And so they didn't immediately do anything about it. Then later, he was a part of a case in Antioch where individuals had been harmed. So all of a sudden they show up at his home, and now he goes to court. He has to fight the charge. But what the judge said was, this is all grand and good that you want to finish barber school, but it is not going to matter because you'll be in jail, and you should take what the DA offered you, 2 years, because what I'm going to give you is going to be so much worse. And so I'm looking at this young, Black man who is sharing with us that for the first time, he's going to complete something in March. So my advocacy is not about whether he did the crime or not. It never is. It's more about what's fair for him, and to just have his trial not start on Monday, but instead start after he's able to get his barber's license. That's a small request.
Wow. And I'd like to ask you this, Yvette, based on what Gigi just talked about, in the prison system, okay, and these twin towers, or the towers you're talking about in LA, they say the same thing about, we have a tower in downtown Chicago. They say the same thing about that. They say that's the largest mental health institution in Chicago. And it's a prison. It's a jail. It's not a healthcare facility. When you're in jail or in prison, are there real services for mental health? Are there real services out there to help people, to get the things that they need mentally?
So you're in Chicago, Sean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So years ago, my husband is deceased now. He died of cancer, but his sister actually is in law enforcement in Chicago. She's probably been an officer now for about 21 years. I believe it was, she came to visit California, and she asked me about the expungement laws in Chicago. She says, what can we do, to combat, the guys on the corners or whatever? And she's a good officer. At that time, I looked up the laws in Chicago for criminal record expungement. And I want to say this was 2010 or 2011. At that time, the only charges that could be expunged were charges that did not lead to a conviction, or you were fully acquitted by a jury. So for your audience, I want them to visualize something. In 2010, a young man or a young woman, they wake up and they're like, you know what? I'm done. I'm finished with this other life. I want to work. I want to do the right thing. I'm going out looking for employment. But they have criminal charges, convictions, minor, let's say just all misdemeanors. They cannot pass a background check.
Wow.
Period. And the fight that I know that I was following it for quite some time. Now it's not the same as it was then. But Mr. Sean, if you can go back and think about what I just said, how many thousands of young people and older in 2010, between 2010 and 2020, wanted to do something different, but could not, and did not have fair access to mental health, to employments. I was there, I can't remember what year it was. There was 30 jobs available for some grocery store that was opening in Chicago. There was over 400 people in line for those jobs. I still have the newspaper article. And of those people, because I actually got out of the car and talked to some about their criminal records, and they were like, well, we're just seeing if we can get a chance. I'm not sure what services are offered in Chicago now, but I certainly hope it's better than it was in 2010, between 2010 and 2020.
Wow. No, I wish I could tell you the answer. We have a mayor now that one of the things he ran on was trying to get police officers to not be social service workers. So when they show up, but have I seen that? I can't say I've seen that.
Right. Do you know, Sean, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but no, I learned something about police officers training that shocked me. So it takes longer to become a barber or a hairstylist than it does to become a police officer. Are you aware of that?
Yes. No clue.
In every state. So here in California, I want to say it's about 1,570 hours. That's about a year. It takes anywhere from 6 to 9 months to become a sworn-in police officer, car-carrying, gun-carrying officer. In those trainings, there's one huge component missing: customer service. Are you aware that our police officers do not undergo any customer service training whatsoever, which could help de-escalate? Because the first thing we say to someone when we meet them is, hello, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. We're checking for energy, right? Because out in the streets, energy meets energy. So mm-hmm. if you're not being taught how to talk to people, then what are we doing? Right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And to answer your earlier question about, individuals who are incarcerated and their ability to get mental health supports, the sad truth is, I was just in Washington, D.C., just got back on Friday night. The legislation that NAMI National is pushing, we have 3 initiatives. One is that when a person is incarcerated, their Medicare and government health entitlements go away right away. Whether they've been convicted of the crime or not. Upon arrest, then it becomes the funding from their jurisdiction's general fund. That means when they're released, they have to start all over again with getting positioned again to receive Medi-Cal or Medicare. And that's the challenge that we face. So many individuals, when they're incarcerated, they're not, if you're criminalized because your skin is weaponized, often, even though your family has records that you've lived with a diagnosed mental illness, it's up to the forensic department at the jail to make a determination. So many people who live with mental health challenges are in general population, and they continue to decompensate there. You have to have some pretty, strong advocacy, and you have to have some documentation from prior arrests before you're put into the mental health units of jail. So that's really unfortunate, because most people are not treated for their mental health challenge once they're incarcerated, and then they lose their benefit regardless of their background.
Wow, you brought something up, Earl. I want to kind of go back to and highlight. You mentioned that people tend to compensate because that's how they interact with the world around them. If they're in a prison population, they might be getting having an untreated mental health issue because they're nobody's recognizing it. They say, well, that's just the way that guy acts. That's the way that lady is. And when really there's something underlying there that needs to be addressed. And if you let them back out into society and it hasn't been treated, what then is the likelihood for that to repeat?
Yeah, that's why the recidivism rate is so high, right? If you have an ailment, you don't take care of it, don't look at root cause, don't give people the proper care. Self-medication is real big for those who are experiencing a trauma. I personally don't think anyone can experience having their civil liberties taken away and then they come out balanced. It's going to be a period of time that they're going to have an adjustment. And if you're someone who lost everything because you've been incarcerated, we shouldn't have that gap for people waiting to get their benefits so that they can start the process of getting services. That's why we have, now reentry programs that we're putting in place. But most people who live with mental health challenges are not aware of it.
Wow. Now, Yvette, what's the biggest thing that you see, the most common thing that you expunge in your services?
Theft.
Really?
Yeah, it's so actually there's 2: theft and drugs, selling and using. And I have 2 things that I say during my presentation, so I'm just going to get it out now. Everybody has a why, right? Is when you learn to trust again. Because what I basically do is I sit down with a person and I know that I'm trying to undo whatever harm that was caused to them prior to them meeting me, because they trusted someone. No one has ever bought their first high. Your first drink, your first smoke, it was through a friend or a close family member. No one has ever just walked into a store or walked up to a dealer It doesn't work that way. Even dealing drugs, you are introduced to the dealer. So everyone has a right. And I learned years ago, your first high is free, and it's the last one that you may pay for, right? So it is drugs and dealing drugs and using drugs and theft. And with that being said, I also follow Brian Stevenson, founder of the Justice Center. Anyway, he says we are not the worst mistakes we have ever made in our lives. And when I heard him say that, I realized that's my population. That's Gigi's population and my population. And we're trying to undo anywhere from one mistake to 20 mistakes. But the first thing we have to do is build trust, because you can offer someone $1 million if they don't trust where it's coming from. Rightfully so, they don't want it. Right? Mm-hmm. So it's definitely drugs. And I've never met a person who volunteered to be addicted to anything for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. They didn't know. All drugs start off as being fun. Drinking starts off as being fun. It becomes I liken it to a relationship. You meet the drug. Oh, this is cool. I like this. Casually, and then as the relationship grows, or you start falling in love with it, then it's unstoppable. But then there's always that day, and their ready is not our ready, right? When they're ready to fall out of love, we just got to be there to support them. So I've always looked at it like a relationship.
If you were to give lawmakers advice or give the society advice about how to tackle right now the current epidemic, what's the name of the drug? What's the drug that's popular now? What's the name of it?
Fentanyl.
The fentanyl epidemic now. Every few years is a new epidemic. Now it's fentanyl. So what would you? It used to be crystal meth. I wanted to say crystal meth, but that's not even a thing no more. Now it's fentanyl that they're talking about. What would you suggest to lawmakers and people out there to try to solve these problems, these drug problems that are hurting the streets?
Well, the approach that I think we are using isn't working, right? Because I'm really big on prevention. And so I participate in my county on the racial justice oversight body that demonstrate the fact that individuals who are from communities of color often end up incarcerated. And then you look at root cause of why someone would have committed a crime that led them to jail. Is the unaddressed trauma. So before the self-medication takes place, we got to look at what's happening in schools and the young people who are not being seen or heard, and not addressing mental health challenges early on. No matter what ethnicity the person is, they start looking for something to make them feel better. Self-medication comes from individuals looking for something outside of themselves to feel better. And if the root cause is unaddressed trauma, then we can't just focus only on the use of substances. We got to look at the harm and the pain that so many young people are carrying that makes them susceptible to saying, yes, I'll try this. That part for me is the part. I think that's why we have the folks who are living on the streets unsheltered. I got a call today from a parent who said, wow, they finally got my daughter into psych emergency services because she had a health condition, and they did the primary work was to treat her issues she was having with not being able to keep food down, but then her mom was able to find out where she was, get her into psych emergency services, and for the first time, they found methamphetamines in her system. So we're like, oh no. But if you're unsheltered and homeless and you become a part of a culture and you're trying to stay warm and you live in a jurisdiction that can predict how many people are going to die each winter from hypothermia, but we don't put the research into how do we keep them from becoming homeless in the first place?
Wow.
How do we keep them from joining a family, not a gang, a family, which is what they search for when they're in protection. And part of it is family. Come try what that takes an edge off a little for me. And that's the one thing about fentanyl. I've actually lost 2 staff members who live with mental health challenges, who one was pretty young and looking for a place to belong and probably didn't know it was in there. The other was a pretty long-term drug user and was found on public transportation. He had crashed out of his housing situation, and he was on what we call barred barrier rapid transit on the train, missing for 4 or 5 days. His mom trying to find him, and then when they did the autopsy, they found that it was fentanyl, and it's not, that it's being laced into drugs that people use like heroin, but they don't know that the fentanyl is in there, or even marijuana, but they don't know that the fentanyl is in there, and it's deadly. And this country is paying attention to it now because this is one of those drugs, unlike crack, where it's across ethnicity. So it's being treated from a disease model, which is great. That we're looking at it from a disease model, where if we didn't do that for some of the drugs that primarily were used or thought of being used by African Americans. So I think that if I was, speaking to a legislator, I would always remind them, look at root cause and let's fix the problem we have with so many young people not getting their mental health challenges addressed and growing up and still, not finding what they need to find, and then turning to drugs as a form of self-medication.
Yvette, we got a little bit of time left, about 3 minutes left. How long does it take to do an expungement usually?
Anywhere from 6 to 9 months now. Yeah, the courts all over are backed up. I recently did a podcast with TK Kirkland. So I started receiving a lot of calls from all over the place, every state. And they were telling me about their efforts in trying to do it themselves, and just giving them, giving them advice on where to go, and then looking into their charges. Here in California, 6 to 9 months. Outside of California, yeah, it can be anywhere from 6 to 9 months up to a year, actually. Wow. But it's a very rewarding process. I did have time to think of one person who was one of my biggest accomplishments. This gentleman had taken his Series 7's test and passed it to be a stockbroker.
Right.
And he went through the court process after I completed his paperwork, and he sent me a screenshot of a sign-on bonus of $220,000 with a brokerage firm in San Francisco. And so that was really exciting.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just literally him doing the work before meeting me, and all it was just respecting the process. It's a process to get into trouble. It's a process to get out of it.
It's easier to get a pardon than it is to get a phone record.
Really?
Right.
Wow.
And I want to let your audience know also that when you are filling out a job application and you say no to have you ever been convicted or arrested? If you have been arrested, please say yes. Because a simple arrest that did not lead to a conviction is on a rap sheet. But after you go through the expungement process, you can legally say no. My thing is, if you have to spread your hands, that's a live scan. You say yes, and you put down the date that your record was expunged, right? If you do not have to undergo a live scan, then you can say no. But to any arrest that did not lead to conviction, own that arrest on that piece of paper, please.
So if you've been arrested but went to a trial process, but you were not convicted, you can say no. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But they shouldn't legally, they're not even supposed to be asking about arrests that did not lead to convictions, but that's for part 2 when you bring me back to talk about that.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618.
I'm Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
X, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
America's Heroes Group Roundtable live stream digital media show. December is AIDS Awareness and National Human Rights Month. This show is for Wednesday, December 18, 2024. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you check us out on YouTube, our Facebook channel, and of course, americashg.org. With it, again, is Stephanie Collada, U.S. Army Reserve Sergeant First Class. She is the founder and creator of the newly renamed The Political Veteran Podcast, and she is our AHG correspondent. And there's a new bill, ladies and gentlemen. It's called HR Bill 9495. You may have seen it on social media. Might be hearing some things about it. It pertains to nonprofits, or otherwise known as 501c3s. We'll see what happens if it passes the Senate. It's already passed the House. Stephanie, what can you tell us about this?
So this is a bill that, one part of the bill is great. And actually the Senate already passed a portion of it. And that's the for the hostages. If they're unlawfully detained in another country, they're hostages, they're by terrorists, things like that, they can be exempt from your taxes. Because technically, like they like if you were a POW, I mean, sure, you're in a combat zone, so you're tax exempt, but if you weren't, you would still have to pay the taxes that you were actually detained. So this bill would actually put that exception in for those people that are detained and they're hostages for the time period that they were, unlawfully detained. That part's great. Already passed the Senate, unanimous consent, but not the next part of it. And the next part of it is actually stripping nonprofit organizations of their nonprofit taxable, non-taxable status by basically by saying that they have connections to a terrorist organization.
So I want to read something from the Congress.gov, the summary of HR 9495, the 118th Congress. So this passed the House November 21st, so just a couple weeks ago, called the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties American Hostages Act. So keep this in mind, the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act, which seems like what you just described. And that is, I think, a very important thing to talk about, because people don't realize that when you're detained overseas because you're in a prison camp, because you're in some kind of hole in the ground somewhere, or Hamas or Al-Qaeda or whoever has you hostage, you could be a POW stuck from Vietnam for all we know. you still owe taxes on any money that you're getting as income as a soldier, as a person who's a journalist, whoever. There was an NPR report recently. Jason Razian, I'm not sure if I said his name last wrong, but he was held hostage in Iran for 544 days. Came home and had to face a tax and penalties owed to the IRS. It started out with a $22,000 tax bill from the IRS saying, "You owe us."
Yep.
He was able to go through a process and able to get it down to $6,000. But that is, and there's, because the way the tax law is written, there's really no exemption. There's no excuse because you were overseas and held hostage as a prisoner of war or held hostage as a political detainee that you can't pay your taxes. So the bill, this is the writing on congress.gov. It says this bill postpones certain tax filing deadlines for U.S. nationals who are unlawfully or wrongfully detained abroad or held hostage abroad and their spouses. It also allows for a refund and abatement of tax penalties and fines paid by hostages, detained individuals, and their spouses or dependents. And then this is the second part if we're going to get into. The bill terminates the tax exempt status of terrorist supporting organizations. Almost seems like an add-on or afterthought.
Right. And it's quite interesting of how they added this in here. And it actually went to a vote a couple weeks earlier, actually, I believe November 11th. I'm double checking, November 12th, that it actually went to a vote and it failed. But then they took the bill back, did a few edits, and that's when they brought it to a vote again on the 21st, and it passed. And they actually increased, they had the same amount of Republicans voting yay and nay, because that's 204-1. On the one on the 21st, they were actually able to get 15 Democrats to vote for it. So it's interesting. I'm not sure. This actually, there is an error on congress.gov that I just noticed, and it's actually 52 Democrats, I apologize, that voted for that bill on the 21st. Wow. There's a number of them. I know Colin Allred was on that one. He was the former candidate for Texas Senate, but he lost to Ted Cruz, so he won't be coming back for next congressional session. But it's interesting to see that flip for the Democrats on why they decided to vote for it this time. And one of the things I think might be the catch is because they added a bit of due process to the end of this bill. So due process is an actual constitutional right to everybody and their organizations. And in here, they actually added in here, so you can appeal a decision that's done by the Treasury Department on rescinding the nonprofit status. And that would be an administrative review by the IRS, Independent Office of Appeals. And it said that the U.S. District Court shall have exclusive jurisdiction to review final determination with respect to an organization's designation as a terrorist supporting organization under subparagraph B, yada, yada, all the legal stuff. And this will include, it actually goes into the specifics about classified information, because often anything we know about terrorist organizations mostly comes from high-level intelligence reports that needs to be classified. So there are, if you guys don't know, because of President Trump's classified documents cases, you can have classified court cases. It's a lot of process to go through that. But so they also went in the specifics on that, which actually is great. But it's still a scary bill in the first place because the Treasury Department has the right to rescind that. And then it doesn't have any timelines. It doesn't have, how long they have to take or how long you can to appeal. There's no timeline. So they can probably go a little bit of whatever they want to do. Mm-hmm. So that also worries me a bit too.
I'm going to play this clip. And this clip is from Representative Lloyd Smucker. He's a Republican in Pennsylvania. And this kind of goes into, because I know people's heads are probably spinning a little bit because they're not quite probably catching the two sides of what we're talking about. First thing we talked about was the fact that, it's a great thing that people that are detained overseas don't have to pay tax penalties because they weren't able to pay tax penalties because they were held hostage in a foreign nation or somewhere. The second part of it, though, however, is that certain the argument is being made that certain nonprofits in the United States and possibly even abroad, nonprofits that operate in the United States collect money from donors and then use that money for a terrorist supported organization. So we're going to play the clip from the Representative Lloyd Smucker right now.
Today's 411 days since Hamas terrorists capture and continue to hold men, women, and children, including 7 American citizens hostage in the Gaza Strip. And in the wake of those attacks, nefarious groups have leveraged their status as nonprofits under Section 501c3 of the tax code to provide material and financial support to Hamas. We have examples. One is the Alliance for Global Justice, which is linked to the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which the State Department designated as a terrorist organization. Another example is the Popular Media Project, which employed a Hamas spokesperson who held 3 Israelis hostage at his home in Gaza. Mr. Speaker, we don't negotiate with terrorists, so why should we allow tax advantage groups to fund them?
So that was what Smucker had to say about why he believes this bill is important for the second half of it. Why nonprofits need to be looked at to stop funneling money to these terrorist organizations. Walk us through that process. It sounds good on its face, right? What are some of the troubles and the positives of that?
The thing is that there is a difference in investigations when it comes to the Treasury Department on what they do versus what like the Department of Justice would do. And because the FBI, CIA, they really do go on what is legally and criminally, possible and what would fall within the lines. And that worries me that it's the Treasury Department that will be handling that portion. But it is the money game of where the money is going. So they could do okay. They could do all right. I know the Secret Service also handles some of that stuff as well, that they actually love to track the monies in the currency because that actually falls under their job as well. So I wonder if any incorporation of them will be involved. But the bill doesn't include that. It just says the Treasury Department. Doesn't include anything else. So to me, I want bills to be as specific as possible, but this is very vague and broad. Because if there's 2 types of leadership that you run into when a bill goes forward or when a bill becomes a law, it's not in the law, it's not going to happen. That's not part of it. Or it's not part of it, so we can add to on our own, just like in military regulations, you can't take away, you can add to. Mm-hmm. And so there's 2 schools of thought on that. And it just depends on what you run into when you go into legal stuff, because there are different types of judges that, that see the law that way. And it'll be a big question of how the courts will handle this. I suspect it's going to be going in the courts a number of times, depending on the charities that they target. Because not only because everybody's thinking of Islamic terrorists, Hamas, Syrian, all of those, but there's a number of people that want to go after domestic terrorists. And there's organizations that are very uncomfortable with this because they are worried that they may be loosely connected to a domestic terrorist without realizing. So it's actually causing a lot of fear amongst nonprofits on who they work with. So they're less likely to work with people and actually do the quality of work that they have. And that can negatively impact the U.S. as well.
We have another clip from a counterpoint. This is from Rashida Tlaib. She is from Michigan, actually. And she's in Congress. She's in 12th District of Michigan. Let's play her clip because I think that talks to your point of what the problems could be with that. Let's talk about that.
This is going to be my third time voting against this bill because I don't care who the president of the United States is. This is a dangerous and an unconstitutional bill that would allow unchecked power to target nonprofit organizations as political enemies and shut them down without due process. If you really truly cared about the hostages or Americans being held captive, the stop tax penalties for hostages is already here as a standalone bill that passed out of the Senate. So let's not make it about that. This legislation is part of a broader assault on our civil liberties, including our right to dissent in our country. It aims to criminalize the very social justice movements fighting for justice at peace here at home as well as abroad. Make no mistake, this bill is not only, and I constantly have said this to folks, this is not just about Palestinian human rights advocacy organizations. This is about the NAACP, the ACLU, Planned Parenthood, folks that have been trying to make it safe for our kids to go to school away from gun crisis and violence.
So that was her point of view, and which a lot of people have been echoing. And the big concern and criticism of this bill is the fact that any person at the helm could say this organization is got to go without any due process, without any kind of investigation, and not, and as you mentioned, not really a clear direction as to how an organization can fight this or prove that it's wrong. This automatically just be shut down literally because of someone's thought.
Yeah. And then to call back to what I said on the two schools of thought, there's another thing that's going on is because they found, okay, so for example, there is the Alliance of Global Justice, a U.S. nonprofit with the tax exempt status that has been found to be funding a group recently designated by the U.S. government as a sham charity and a funder for terrorism. Right now, the IRS is yet to revoke the tax exempt status. They may be saying, we can't do it because we don't have the law that tells us we can. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that school of thought of the law doesn't say it specifically means we can't do it. So that part can also be the struggle that's going on with the IRS, which then I hate it when people try to blame the president in charge because he doesn't make the laws. The congressmen do, the one that are complaining. And so it's one of those things that it may be a good thing, but it may be a bad thing depending on who's in charge and who are the leaders there. So it can be very hairy at times on how to do that.
So clear this up for me and for the people. Mm-hmm. Is it the Treasury Department that will make the decision as to, okay, we need to shut this organization down because we think this money's going towards a terrorist organization, or is it somewhere else? Or is it
I am double checking. I believe it is the Treasury Department. I'm so sorry that I couldn't remember. Yes, it is. The Secretary, the Treasury Secretary has the power to rescind a nonprofit status.
So that's the thing. Is weird about that. Are they even equipped to do that? Because there's FinCEN, for example. There are government agencies that do track terrorist spending in our kind of budget or finance system. So like FinCEN is probably the main one we can think of. Right. But is the Treasury Department specifically able to then make a determination for who stays, who goes, who gets shut down, who doesn't get shut down?
Yeah, and it's also for due process in that regard. He rescinds it. A lot of times, when you're criminally liable, an organization can actually go to the court as a whole, because the Trump organization was actually found guilty for fraud, by the way. Not the actual heads, but the actual organization as a whole. And that's when they face penalties. Well, Treasury Department rescinds the nonprofit status. A lot of people may argue that they don't have the due process because you're still innocent before proven guilty.
Right.
I mean, that would be guilty of association with a terrorist organization. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, it's not a criminal punishment that the Treasury Department is carrying out. So it's something to really be worked out in the courts. And that would be something that would be quite interesting to see.
So this is another thing I wanted to talk about too, because this reminds me of the Chevron Act or the Chevron bill, whatever they called it, whatever that whole thing where it eliminated the. Let me look this up so I can explain this a little better. But it basically eliminated the ability for the government to use certain types of experts when the government itself was not capable of making certain determinations. So it puts give more power to the government to just arbitrarily make decisions without any kind of real expertise on the topic. So if you're doing this type of judgment to judge not-for-profits who have a diverse and widely varied types of things that they involve themselves with, is the government an expert on, for example, religious speech on the Quran? Are they experts on the cultural relationship between Ukraine and Russia and the history of Ukraine and Russia and what that relationship's all about? Are they experts on, maybe a gun rights advocate who believes that, people have the right to bear arms and, so they're making determinations as to what psychological profile of a board member on a group or not-for-profit has the right to be a 501c3. All these types of things I start thinking about when it comes down to who is actually capable or to make a decision, an executive decision, without the due process.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's called a Chevron defense, and an administrative law concept that said courts should defer to a federal agency's reasonable interpretation of an ambiguous statute. The thing is that earlier this year, the Supreme Court actually overturned that doctrine or deference. So that'll be interesting to see on how they do it. They overturned it. They probably also said that this doesn't apply here with the court case that they had. So it would be interesting to see on how they would work that out.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope. It's interesting. All the different bills are coming through the pipeline now. It seems like, step by step, we're putting bricks up to change fundamentally how our Constitution works. It's like I slowly see these little pieces coming into play. The president can't be tried for presidential acts, or can't be held accountable for presidential acts. That's the Chevron Act now is defunct. Now this bill is coming up. It's just a weird alignment of things that have happened. That most people don't really think about because it doesn't affect their everyday life. No. But these are kind of some of the threads of the foundation of the fabric of our nation. Yes, it is. And I honestly don't believe that the Senate will bring this bill to a vote before the session is out, because the session's over. I believe January 3rd. It's because that's when all the new elected people and also the ones that had been, the incumbents, they swear back in again and a new congressional session happens. That happens 20 days before the inauguration. And so that one, then the bill would die. Right now, the one in control of the Senate is Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, and he doesn't have to bring that bill to a vote at all. There's a way to force him into it, and you got to actually submit a resolution and things like that. But I don't necessarily see it happen before the session's out. It may, but I really doubt that it'll come up to a vote. Now, in the next session, though, the Republicans will own the Senate, right?
Yes, they own the Senate, and I believe 53 to 47. And then, but the thing is that there's a few of those Republicans you can't necessarily count, because Susan Collins tends to vote with the Democrats. I believe there's another lady, I think it's Murkowski from Alaska, but the Alaskan senator, depending on the subjects, she will vote with the Democrats as well. So it just depends on the subjects. That's where the votes will go. And
is it better than for Schumer to try to get it out now? Because if he thinks he might be able to shoot this down in the Senate, is it likely to pass?
Oh no, they'll reintroduce it again. If it fails to pass, they'll reintroduce it, and I bet it's going to be in the first 1,000 bills. Because in the first 100 days, there's almost 1,000 bills that are submitted. There's 10,000 bills that are submitted, introduced into the Congress.gov every congressional session. So I'm pretty sure they're going to reintroduce that pretty quick and ready. And it might add a few more edits when people are sounding off on more things that they may have. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. I had a thought. Okay. But the thing is that the House is getting very, very narrow on their votes. There's still one Republican that's been voting against it, and I need to double check who that one is. But there are a number of representatives that were selected for appointments, and others are going to be, they're resigning from their positions, and then they have to do a special election to fill their seats. The special election takes about 3 to 4 months, depending on the district. So it could be a very narrow margin. It may drop between 218 and 217 on the majority side. And that's like 1 to 2 seats.
Wow.
They can't lose any votes on that side. So it can be a very interesting, very polarized situation going in the House. And it is the most narrow margin that we have seen in the House. So this is going to be a very interesting thing. I always say C-SPAN was the original reality show, and we're going to see some really good, interesting things that's going to pop up on TikTok. I promise you.
Wow. What do you think about these? I'll just change topics a little bit. What do you think about the Trump appointment so far that he's recommended? What's your overall thought?
I'm personally okay with Senator Rubio, but I mean, I'm Floridian, so I'm familiar with Senator Rubio, Marco Rubio myself. He does do bipartisan, especially when it comes to veterans. He stayed with voting for the PACT Act when there was the flip for the Republicans that tried to kill it and accused the Democrats that there were pork barrel spending when there wasn't. He actually didn't do the flip. He actually stuck with it and voted for the bill. And so he does stand by a lot of the morals of making sure that his constituents gets what he needs. Although I don't agree with a whole lot of his opinions. But then out of the other bunch, I'd rather take him than of all the others that he has selected. I'm so glad Matt Gaetz was stepped down. So we'll see how that one goes. His replacement at least has, oh God, I can't remember her name, but she used to be the Florida Attorney General, and she has some experience with working as an Attorney General for the state of Florida. So thankfully, somebody with a little bit of experience, because Matt Gaetz was only a lawyer for a few years before he started running for office.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about the Department of Defense, Pete Hegseth, I'm sorry. What's your thoughts?
Oh my goodness. I am concerned because of the reason why he honestly got out of the National Guard, because they believe he was an insider threat, because he had Aryan tattoos, and it wasn't like small stuff. It was big things. He also has a very negative point of view towards 15 to 20% of the military, the women. And that can cause a very toxic workplace. And toxic workplaces can stem a lot of issues. Not just, if there's sexual harassment in the workplace, everybody's going to think it's just sexual harassment. That's wrong. But the thing is that if you're bad enough to do sexual harassment, there's going to be other bad stuff happening. Just a Pandora's box comes up. I used to be a sexual assault response coordinator. When we had sexual harassment complaints filed in, I usually warned the commanders, like, there's something else going on. Just be ready to assign more investigating officers, because there's going to be more things that's going to be happening. We found drinking on the job. They had kegs underneath the desks before we were doing the conference calls in the evenings. Like, there was a whole lot of stuff going on. So when there are toxic behavior, often much more illegal criminal acts are happening around them because they're going to allow it. And that's what concerns me. Having that so high in the Department of Defense can cause a lot of issues.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not sure sometimes I think he just threw a bunch of spaghetti up to the wall and said, well, it would stick. This is so he could appease his base.
Well, there's a theory there.
Yeah.
He threw out the worst ones out there, knowing that they're probably are not going to pass. So then you would be okay with the ones that still suck. And they will pass. So that one can be a lot of issues, but it also reminds me of a episode in the Supremes, from West Wing. It's called The Supremes. And they had, in the tactic there, they brought out they had to replace a Supreme Court justice. So they brought out the most liberal judge that they have to annoy the Republicans who were in charge of the Senate. And they freaked out and they were like, we'll take anybody you have as long as they're moderates.
Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market,
Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to America's Heroes Group Roundtable live stream digital media show. December is AIDS Awareness and National Human Rights Month. Wednesday, December 18th, 2024 is our current time and station on Earth. And I have two special guests with me. Chris Lang, a major in the U.S. Army Reserve, and his wife, Michelle, are the co-founders of Operation Honor, Rural Salute, OHRS, which supports rural veterans and their communities across the United States. Michelle serves as the executive director, while Chris holds the position of vice president. Through partnerships, events, and online platforms, OHRS connects veterans with vital services such as real estate assistance, business support, healthcare, and career opportunities. By fostering a strong sense of community and leveraging the skills of veterans bring to the table, OHRS is committed to empowering both veterans and rural America, ensuring they thrive together. Operation Honor Rural Salute, a nonprofit organization, was born from their personal struggles when Chris, after 8 years of active duty service, confronted a difficult transition out of active duty Army life. Navigating a lack of resources in rural America put a strain on their family and marriage, but it also inspired their mission and their striving to make sure that this does not happen to other veterans in rural areas who sometimes feel forgotten. Michelle also has a deep understanding of rural communities shaped by her upbringing in small town Pennsylvania. Together, they're on a mission to connect rural veterans to the community, resources, and opportunities they've earned. And today's discussion is going to center around OHR's Operation Honor Rural Salute mission, programs, and services. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so happy to have the two of you on. Thank you, first of all, for your service, both of you, to the nation, and also to the rural communities. My father actually grew up in Altoona, Pennsylvania. So I had the chance of going up and down those hills quite a few times. And
he went to college in Altoona for a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, I was at Altoona campus for Penn State.
For Penn State, hey, that's good. I was the director for the Illinois Department of Public Health for some time, and the rural communities always were something that beckoned me, to go and visit them. We have 102 counties and 94 local health departments. So I actually made it my business to go out and visit each one of them. We have floods in Illinois, and how it devastated farmers and rural communities was just really something to behold, and the love and the greatness of the American people who are living there always, sort of put a knife in my heart when I saw them suffering and it all. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to turn this over to you, two of you, and see, how you would like to proceed about describing this. I went on, online to look at your website, and, empowering rural veterans, building thriving communities was, one of the statements is there. But you had a lot of services there, with organizations, community resources, events. I was really, and podcasts and other things, but I was really amazed at all the dimensions you have, that it's kind of a wide reaching effort. So why don't we start it off? Who wants to start off?
Well, I guess this is my lane. I'm the talker about this. Chris will talk your ear off about any random fact you ever want to know. Usually in the office, his nickname was John Tesh. So, but yeah, we do have a lot of programs. We're trying to really focus on our resources in our community right now, and just really get those strong and off the ground while we build these other things in the background, because we just think it's really important that we have really reputable and a specifically curated database that I can reach into and say, if you're a rural veteran, I already know these people, I already talked to them, they can serve you. A wide range of resources we have, because we really want people to be able to get that help and think about their life holistically, not just, we would rather you come to us and say, hey, I need help buying a house, rather than, hey, I need help finding a house because I'm homeless. So what can we do to empower you to live the life you want to live before we get down this road of, not looking so good and not well. So we focus on VA loans and real estate, how you can, leverage a VA loan. A lot of people in rural communities don't even know they qualify for VA loans. And a lot of real estate agents don't even know how VA loans work, or a mortgage lender to refer them to. So there's an education piece there, an education piece with what financial benefits are available to veterans, how they can make their money work for them. Holistic resources, if you need some, in-person group support, we have a lot of great resources for, we have one that they'll take you out to Utah and do a whole workup for you, mental health, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, really cool stuff like that. Mental health resources, entrepreneurship. There's so many things that rural veterans can take advantage of on the resource library page, but there's also a lot of issues that people need to talk through, which is why we have our community page where people can talk to each other. A lot of people say there's no help available for me. They'll look at resources and say, no, I've tried resources before. They don't help people like me. And then you go into the community and you talk to somebody that has used them. Well, now that word of mouth is worth its weight in gold, and they're going to go check it out. So really trying to reach through the skepticism and some of the moral injury that people have faced whenever they've, had bad experiences with the VA or bad experiences with other resources, because there's a lot of really good work being done out there right now. We're just trying to create a path for people to see that.
Yeah, whenever we started this thing, like the idea was in the beginning just to gather as many resources as possible. And I mean, that's kind of the idea of the Veteran Help Point. So pretty much everyone in the Army has been through an SRP where you show up and, you know, you're ready to deploy. And it's like, okay, you go to that station, you need to do finance, you know, you go over there. And that was sort of like my overarching idea, you know, almost like a logistics supply point. It's like, okay, so you guys need that class. And, but yeah, so if we had everything that we could, you know, just get underneath and, all right, whatever this dude needs, you know, like, all right, so physical health isn't that great. You know, we got, you know, physical therapists that we could direct him to, you know, mental health, which helps. It's one of the nice things about, you know, working in with this resource finding thing is using them myself. Right. But yeah, so it was just the idea of getting that sort of logistical point. And, you know, I'm from small town central Pennsylvania as well. I'm from a little bit north of her in Huntington. And so, like, both of us started to realize that all the people that we knew in smaller areas, like it seems like a resource desert, but it's really not. There's stuff out there, just nobody knows about it.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, you know, and as you were speaking, you really, you know, triggered some memories. You know, when I went up to Iraq a couple of times, and I, you know, I was thinking about, well, if you need boots, here are your boots. If you need, you know, flight gear, here's your flight gear. Do you need this? And everything was really well orchestrated. And why we don't have something similar to people re-entering our communities is really astounding to me. So I really applaud you on that, you know, that vision. And usually that comes from strong emotions too. So I know there were some things that you had to overcome, you know, just reintegrating and looking at things. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that, because many people out there have the same things they're going through, and they think they're in isolation. They think, oh, this only is happening to me, but it's not.
Yeah, it's weird going from everything being so, I mean, I don't know. My joke is like every day in the military is a donza, because there really is no such thing as scheduled activities. We're all just putting out fires. But you know what you're going to be doing that day for the most part. You know what you're going to wear. You know, you generally know what you're going to eat if, you know, you're using DFAC. It's a lot less controlled, and it's the Wild West. And my brain definitely was not ready for it. I already had, you know, a lot of issues, you know, before I came into the military, that some of those surfaced while I was, you know, serving. And I did not do well as a civilian, which is why I'm back in, I can call it now, on ADOS orders at USACAPOC, United States Army Civil Affairs and Psychological Operations Command.
Okay.
But like what she was pointing out with our community, that sometimes like you just want to talk to somebody else that gets it, like somebody else that has been through it. Whenever I had I was doing the TPU thing in the reserve, and I was just going in, you know, to my civilian job every day, and then only into the reserve once a month. The guys at the break room started being like, man, your stories are all really depressing. And I realized a lot of them, it just didn't occur to me. So stories that I would tell about, you know, like really great friends that I would make, and they're like, yeah, but he didn't make it back. He stepped on a toe popper his last deployment. And they're like, oh, holy crap. You know, like, first off, explaining to them what that meant. And then, you know, like, wow, you said that with a really calm face. I'm like, that's the reality, man. Like, we don't all make it back. And today I saw a hilarious video of some guys. It was early Iraq. They were still wearing the chocolate chip uniform, and their gunner in their vehicle pretends like he just got hit by sniper fire, and just he drops in. Everybody in the Humvee starts freaking out until they realize that he was messing with them, and then everybody's laughing. It's like, it's that dark sense of humor that you share with other vets, and it's kind of off-putting to some. But
yeah, it's very abrasive and shocking. If you are not used to being in the military community, it's very difficult to relate. Even my friends, like as a military spouse, like we would just be talking, and I think one time I was telling them about like some things that were happening just in the world that they weren't aware of. And they were like, how do you know this and like go to sleep at night? And it's just like, well, that's like, this is just kind of our life. I sleep fine. I mean, I don't know. You just get used to this level of stress and then this level of control, and also not having control at all, because you know that the military is going to, take care of your finances. If your paycheck is messed up, they're going, you can go talk to a financial officer. You can go talk to JAG. You can go to this shop, and get your questions answered. But whenever you get out into the civilian life, like, you're just stripped of your identity. And I know that he really grieved his service in a way that I did not anticipate, nor did he. So it was really going through those phases of grief whenever he first got out. And it was really like a light switch turned off. Like, it just flipped a switch, how he was just different. Like, okay, reality is set in, he's gone. And we didn't get along. We didn't really like each other. And I thought we were going to get divorced at one point. So it was.
Then we had border.
And yeah, it was rough. He signed up for a deployment without telling me.
Yes. Live and learn. Life's a journey.
We were not in a good place, but it was. And he has trouble with the VA too. And knowing what we know now is like, we should have just advocated differently. And then I got him in with a therapist who did not have any military veteran background. And so that like made it worse.
Yeah.
Just being totally feeling like you can't be related to.
Yeah.
But he leaned on his veteran community. And I think it really was, our neighbor was getting evicted. He was a Vietnam veteran. He was getting evicted, and we had to like tap into the veteran community to figure out how to get him housed so he would not be homeless. And getting him plugged back in, talking to people, and getting him back into service, and then talking about his experience is what helped. I know not everybody wants to go back into service, which is why it's very, very important to have your community to talk to.
Yeah, I think one of the only reasons that I made it through that was my first sergeant, who's now Sergeant Major Jeremy Stifler. So I came from 10th Mountain Division. I spent 6 winters up there.
Okay.
Yeah. It's, I mean, we trained hard, like pretty much all the freaking time. And I went from active duty infantry to reserve logistics. And so I was thinking, it's like, all right, so, like I'm still in the reserve. It's, not really like a full step out, but going from like the 10th Mountain to the 1185th DDSB was a culture shock.
A culture shock.
My first sergeant was also in the 10th. And he, was another infantry first sergeant. And he was able to sort of like, hey, sir, this isn't the same environment. We're not deployed right now. And I was insanely lucky to have him as my first sergeant whenever I was a company commander. But yeah, like that dude, I mean, I've told him, like, he pretty much saved my life. My mental health was not good. And if I didn't have him to lean on, aside from, the other buddies that I got that still talk to me, like, it would not have been good. And really happy to be on the other side of that.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you're doing some good thing. You're doing good things for veterans who are here. Who when Michelle was talking about this, she said, one thing that sort of stuck with me for a second was that, people in the general community don't understand your experiences. But when you talk to them about things that happen or what you're feeling or what they look at you like, you're from some other planet. we don't have this here on Earth. And, so for someone to try to interact with you, especially on a psychological level, if you have a person that is in the VA system that's actually trying to treat you and doesn't have an understanding of what you really went through, they look at it and go like, oh, you should be able to get over that. That's not a problem. But they've never gone through the experience and never have, understood or been attached to someone who has. So I'm glad you've gone through that transition period in that way. I was actually stationed in Iraq at Mosul, but I ran across some 10th Mountain medics when I was there, and we were doing some great things together. But when you leave the military, it's almost like you're leaving family, and it's kind of a sort of withdrawal or a feeling of separation, that you have with those people. But they're still around. That people are still around that you can contact and be in touch with. But I want to mention one thing: ohruralsalute.org. If you're listening, you better go to that website and look into it. The rural health solutions that they have for you, and some of the outreach is just fantastic. As I was mentioning, I looked through the website. You can sign up for their website. Pay attention to it. And if you are a family member of a veteran that's going through things, go to that website also, and make sure that they're aware that this thing exists for them. But tell me some of the stories. I mean, you've been going through this for some time, and you were just mentioning about the one veteran, the Vietnam veteran who needed housing. So what are the kinds of things are you seeing out there as you're going through, and what makes the urban versus the rural so much different?
I think in urban areas, there's so many things to keep you busy, right? You can go out to a restaurant, you can go bowling, you can go play at your basketball pickup league. Whenever you live in a rural area, like my hometown has nothing. We have a McDonald's, and that's where all the old guys go and have their coffee in the morning, because we don't have a coffee shop. Okay, that's where they have to go. We have nothing, and that's not abnormal for rural areas. You don't have much to do. So what do? You busy yourself with work. You go hunting, you go, you get into hobbies that are usually by yourself or with your core group of friends that you've known your whole life. There's not a lot of opportunity for socialization or meeting new people. So it's a lot slower in rural areas, and there's just like a different pace of life. They're not as willing to go get themselves checked out, to go ask for help. But what I noticed with our first Operation Honor event, which was in June, which was actually the third iteration of the event that we've done in the past, but this time it was only for rural veterans. What I noticed, whenever I had all the resources there for veterans, craft vendors, everything, veterans went to these veteran resources. They were serious about getting help. They were serious about using them. They were serious about wanting to thrive. And it's like they're workers. They're willing to do what it takes to make their life better, to get the help that they need, or help that they've earned. And so whenever you put them in front of these resources with a real face, with a real person that is willing to help them, they take initiative and they're going to go do it. It's just they don't have a lot of opportunity to see this and go do it. Because think about it, if you're driving an hour and a half to go to the VA hospital, you're already probably grouchy. You've already had to take a day out of your life to go to one doctor's appointment, because that's 3 hours round trip just driving. You're already setting up yourself for a little bit of a negative experience, because that's a long day. And if you have a negative interaction with a worker there, you might not be likely to go back, or you might be grouchy with other people and spread that VA hospital is not good. But really, there's people there that want to help you. So how can we bring the VA into these rural areas and start building that trust and rapport so people can get themselves healthy, get themselves well, and then start utilizing these other resources that are available to them?
Yeah, because these are some of the greatest Americans we have, right? I mean, for you to put your hand up and, take an oath to defend a nation, and, the geopolitics aside, that's all for the American citizens to figure out, through public, rallies and debates and discussions. And, that's the course they set. They set the moral compass for the country. But when you're serving the nation, you're actually putting your life on the line. And you're saying that this is so deeply significant for this country to have this level of protection, that I will put myself in between you and the enemy. in order to have this nation survive. So it's a very, very deep commitment. And I think when people are coming back, what people need to know in the country is that that they also they are human beings too. They were your sons and daughters. They went into service to serve you, and to make sure that they get the appropriate care and the love they need. I actually joined because of the Vietnam veterans coming back. I just did not like the way they were being treated. My father was in World War II. My uncle had a cousin who actually was killed in Vietnam. And so I went through this time frame of looking at that saying, I can't stand here and not do something. So, it was an award in the VA hospital. And I said, this is enough. And 2 weeks later, I went and signed up while I was in medical school. And, one of my, the person who signed me up for it, every time I see him, I, take his hand, and it's like, I go like, and he goes like, what's that? And I said, that's the sound of, shaking the hand of the devil. He was my recruiter. That's why he always laughs. but luckily it was, I met some of the greatest people in the world by being in the military, and will always cherish that. But also, when you were mentioning, the rural areas and the lack of resources, what do you think needs to be the understanding of state, local, city, federal government about funding for these initiatives? Things that you're doing, because this is something that's extremely important to the fabric of our nation. Because who else was going to want to sign up to go and join the military if we don't honor the people who are already in it and the people who are returning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funding is a little bit tricky because right now I'm seeing more. I don't know if it's just because I'm in it, but there really is something happening, I think, where people are really starting to pay attention to rural America. People are moving to rural America. The numbers are still lower than what they have been traditionally, but there's been a spike lately. And the spike is in younger people moving to rural America, starting these homesteads, wanting to have a slower life, wanting to get out of, the busyness of cities because, they can work remotely or whatever. But then they get out there and they're like, well, I'm still a city person. I don't have resources. So there's been a lot of push for funding for broadband and internet. That's been a funding source. There's also been here in North Carolina specifically, there's a rural initiative for community health centers to be funded. So we're still working on funding, the rural veterans and getting it. It's a very niche section, but when I start talking to people about it, they see the value in it and they see that it is important. And really, I think that what rural veterans can do is they really can change the landscape of rural America, and therefore America. And so once we can just convince politicians and lawmakers to let us help them revitalize America this way, I think that we'll, start changing some mind and perking some ears and really start looking towards the future.
Okay.
And we push veterans so much while they're in the service. Like, hey, you either move up or get out. And if you're moving up, you got to learn some leadership skills. And if you've got people that already have those skills developed going into, areas that, I'm not saying are lacking leadership, but, could use some help. What was that study that you read about the, the amount of money? So I can't remember what it was, but some state did a study that whenever a rural veteran comes in the area, they bring so much money with them.
Oh yeah. Every veteran family in the state of Indiana, they calculated added about $50,000 extra dollars to the Indiana economy.
Yeah. Wow. So you get that veteran family into a rural area where that money goes a little bit faster or goes a little bit further than, say in the urban area, that can help that community a lot. Right. And that's one of the things, I seen my hometown, it was very it was an old train town, sort of hub, and that kind of went away. But yeah, like it needs some help getting revitalized. There's a fiberglass plant there that, like changes hands every once in a while, but getting the rural veterans in there to actually help revitalize that, would do a lot for it.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, because we have a new technological time period coming in now, and a lot of, potential for that. But we're starting to run out of time because I'm hearing the music in the background. But I could talk to the two of you all day long, but you're an outstanding couple. Your model that you're using needs to be listened to nationally. Because there are many rural communities in every one of our states. But I'm just really, really proud of you. But I'm telling people, go to ohruralsalute.org and look at the resources they have. We know you're going to come back, to the show because you are just doing such great work. And but one last thing you want to say before we end this?
Thank you for listening, and come join our community. Even if you're not a rural veteran, you can join and ask questions and still help your rural veteran neighbors by asking the question. That's the first step.
Okay.
Yeah,
Stay with
interest.
Stay with America's Heroes Group. Stay with America's Heroes Group. And I'm proud of your service, and both of you have been doing a wonderful service.
Thank you.
Thank you.